Apparently his favorite word is cream. I don't know where that came from. I just heard that. His favorite word is cream. Glenn John McEnroe, the pride of Wimbledon. Bullenium, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. And cream. Project Blue Book, Vincent Proto, good to have you guys here. Thank you for joining us. And where are we here? Jello, nice to have you back. Christopher Morales, good to see you. And let's see. Joshua S., nice to have you here, my friend. And there's SJ. Gorgeous Pam McSee, our buddy Jose. Kurt Seltzer with a splash of lime. Smoky Mountain Wanderer, how are you? Pikachu, good to see you. Gorgeous Sherry Knight has returned. Stunning Helena. And let's see, we're just a few seconds away. The Red Deer Rebel herself, DM. Stunning Carla has returned. Gorgeous Bat Mom, how are you? Lance, what's happening? Peppa H, how you doing? Typical Watch, nice to see you. And the gorgeous and talented Jessica McCreary. Rich Hilke, how you doing, buddy? The stunning Sally Vandervoort, she is Dutch. And $5,900. Okay, we're going to get going. Hi, Alien Girl. Let's do this thing right now. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter @Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. I'll tell you, each and every month, we ended up strong with a huge show that we call the SOR Roundtable, where we bring in some friends to talk about the month that was in the weird, strange, and UFO news. And no different tonight, we have a very strong panel from KPNL. We have Selene, Gary Spikes Jr., our YouTube guy, Bigfoot Hunter, and resident Fu Manchu, Stetson John Hudson, from the Unbiased UFO Report, and from the UAP podcast. I'm telling you, this is a good show. Jason Guillemette is here, good fellow Canadian as well. Handsome beard. Handsome beard. And everyone, I want to say thank you so much for joining us on the Roundtable tonight. UAP Studies podcast, that is. Studies podcast. Dave got it wrong. I apologize, Jason, for that. But no,
how dare you?
I know. But we're glad you're here for the first time. So how we do this is the audience here is really watching you guys. You guys don't know a single question that old Davey's going to ask, so I'm going to be putting you on the spot for your opinion like that. Let's do this right off the bat.
No.
Right off the bat here, we're going to start with some UFO stuff because earlier John Hudson was listening to Luis Elizondo speak for the first time in almost over a month or so, and Luis had been absolutely silent, dealing with some personal health issues, along with other just needing a break after 3 hard years of ufology. John, why don't you tell us about what happened and why Lou all of a sudden came on out?
Yeah, so I mean, first, it should be mentioned that Lou did have a rather serious medical scare, and he just heard back a couple of days ago that it looks like it's going to be okay. So we're all quite relieved. And so, some of it was his personal, need to step out, as you said. But what was really interesting is, and I'll post a link to this later. If you go into the interview he did today. Specifically to the point in the video, it's 24 minutes and 30 seconds in, and it's about 3 minutes of the video. where it begins with Christina Gomez, whose podcast he was on, asks, hey, it seems like someone turned off the spigot. We went from all this, new information coming out, and like a week later, there was nothing. And what's going on? Did someone get upset? Did someone try to shut this down? Is something intentional going on? What is going on? And Lou basically said, he goes, nothing of the sort. He goes, myself, and I'm paraphrasing here, so I would encourage people to listen to it. But he said, basically, a couple of us decided that, we needed to do all this work to get the oven up to 500. We don't need the oven at 800. So, sometimes you got to, pull back a little bit and pace yourselves. And so, a couple of us, decided that we were going to, throttle back a little bit and basically, let everyone else catch up as far as what we've been releasing, because we're very concerned about the quality of the content going out and who's delivering it and so forth. And so, we wanted to just kind of take a step back, and he talks about this for about 3 minutes. And, well, at one level, absolutely, that completely makes sense. And he brings up the really good point that, at least in the U.S., there's been some really serious stuff going on over the last month. I mean, Afghanistan, the fires, I mean, you name it. There's some heavy stuff going on that, really should not be competing with UFO topics. But the thing that was really... I don't know what the right adjective is, but the thing that really caught me off guard was this repeated phrasing that Lou used that clearly indicated that himself and some sized group of other people decided to throttle it. And, he made reference to the fact that they're now in third gear. He made reference to the fact that he and a couple others are working on some pretty serious announcements that will happen in the next 2 or 3 months. That if he was able to tell us about now, a lot of people would be really shocked over. I mean, those were almost his exact words. And so what it did is it gave the impression that, at least to me, that Lou and some other number of people at some point recently were all sitting around together. I don't know, playing PlayStation or something, right? And one of them said, hey, things are getting a little crazy. We should probably slow things down. And everyone else said, right, yeah, we should pace ourselves. And that's kind of weird in a big way, right? I mean, because that implies that there's some real orchestration going on.
Well, there's a couple of things that I've noticed of what you're saying, John, and we're going to get the opinion of the panel here. Jason Guillemette, we're going to start with you. And one of the things that John kind of was saying is that they were basically saying, we've got the gas pedal down. We don't need the oven sitting that hot right now. We're going to cool it off a little bit because of everything that's going on. Now, from a media standpoint and a media background, the one thing that I know, Jason, is when you are red hot, you never take the foot off the gas unless you are told to take the foot off the gas. What's your opinion of this?
Well, it could be that they want to slow us down because they did come out, or they are coming out with more information. You guys can hear me okay, right?
Yeah, you're sounding great.
Okay. So obviously, if they want more information or releasing this information, let the public digest what's been put out already. And after that, start, piling it up with more information later on. But yeah, it's going to take a side seat in the news or back burner with everything else that's going on with COVID and Afghanistan. Nobody wants to hear about UAPs right now, but it allows programs like this, podcasts, and people being able to find more information online now more than ever. So it's letting people sort of absorb the information that's been released so far, and hopefully more to come.
And I agree, but that means that it's not a natural release of information. That means that what we've been getting has not been an organic release of information. It means at some level, whether it's a river being flowing and they're just putting in blocks once in a while to slow down the river, or whether they're actually pouring the water. Either way, someone has been controlling the flow of information release over the last couple months, and it wasn't organic. That's kind of a big deal.
And that is my concern with this is the fact that this, ever since 2017, where I have personally been somebody who has really been on the bandwagon of the fact that there has been a clear narrative that has been steered in this direction. I am someone who I have no problem going on the record and saying and calling BS on a lot of this stuff, because when I look at it, the way the information has come out, the way who has controlled the information, and only certain journalists have been getting that information, I see that as dangerous when a narrative is being played out. Now, for Jason, I'm gonna bring you back in here for a second, and I'm sure you look at it a little bit differently than I do, but I'm just curious. This UFO topic has been waited for years to get the ball rolling, to get that momentum, to get the public talking. They finally got it. Whatever the narrative was, the public was talking. People were coming out of the woodworks to talk about UFOs. It didn't matter whether it was movie stars, athletes, musicians, whether it was regular everyday people. Even clergy members were talking UFOs. I mean, we finally got there, and now all of a sudden it's like, hold back. We're going to stay off this information. That, to me, tells me whether or not there's COVID, whether or not Afghanistan is going on and the mess that's there, that tells me that they are holding on the brakes for something, and something is either awry or something just doesn't smell right. Because when you have the ball, that's like Wayne Gretzky, to put it in Canadian terms, man. That's like Wayne Gretzky saying, "Oh, I've already got 100 points this year, so I'm gonna take 25 games off and not produce," and then all of a sudden, right before the playoffs, say, "Hey, maybe I'll throw in one or two more."
Yeah, but in all fairness, you kind of wonder how much momentum does a guy like Lou have, because he's been at it since 2017, nonstop. So you got to think at some time he's going to have to take a break, slow down, maybe gather more information. I mean, there's only so much that he can do.
True.
And so I think that right now I'm afraid of the monetizing disclosure. That's what I'm worried about. Sort of pay for information, which some other ufologists have done that in the past. I'd be leery of that. I'd be sort of watching for that. But so far, I think he's just taking a break and maybe just letting the public digest. That's my own personal take. But yeah, it's been quite quiet on the UFO front for the last month at least.
Right. Gary, let's get your opinion.
Well, I'm going to say two real quick things. My first thought is the old bait and switch. They're trying to pull the attention to something else so they can sneak something else in. Because when's the next release for information supposed to be? The second part of that report.
Well, I believe the Inspector General's report is due in September. So look, I'm just going to cut you off right there. I have no problem with Luis Elizondo taking a break. He's been pushing hard. I got no problem with that. But if you're withholding information, that's where I have an issue.
I don't think it's Luis. I think that folks, there's a lot more to this. This is a government thing, and I'm gonna be honest with you. They're giving out what they're allowed to give out. And I'm curious to see what's going to happen when this next report comes and see where they go from there, for the simple fact that there's a lot more to this. And we all know that. I mean, you might not agree with me, but there's, and I love how you said about the monetization. It's not even so much the monetization on private parties. I think it's big corporations.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's the main thing. And even we know for a fact that we do have crafts that are able to do some amazing things, but it's not what Lou has been chasing. That's not what and I think that's really, at the end of the day, what does Lou know that we don't know yet? That's what I'm looking forward to finding more out of him, actually. But like I said, I'm afraid of the monetization of ufology, of just saying, if you want to have the answers, come to my seminars. And, we've seen that happen before. I'm not going to name names, but it's dangerous grounds, right? Because we're still dealing with beliefs, and that's still something that we have to deal with because we have evidence, but we're still dealing with people's beliefs, and that's very easy to manipulate.
Who's got the siren on there?
Sorry, that's mine. It's going by the house. Apologize.
All right. I just thought that was Elizondo coming to get us or something. I don't know there. A little suspicious there, I'm going to just say. But Anne Selene, I want to get your take on this. I know you're more paranormal, but you love a good UFO every now and again.
I do. It's definitely not my wheelhouse, but for me, I think that if it was me giving out the information, I don't think that I'd want to just drop the bomb and drop everything right there. I would want to give a little bit at a time because there could be a lot that there is to digest, and I wouldn't want to cause panic or trauma or anything like that. So maybe there is something more, something bigger, and they're kind of slowing it down so that way it's easier to handle when it comes out.
But does anybody on the panel, and I'll open this up to you guys, worry about the narrative? We haven't got the full story. They've now proven, after many of us speculated, that there was a narrative going into this entire discussion starting back in 2017. All right? When they took that DNI report and only went back to 2004, that totally told me and confirmed with me that the narrative of UFOs, what they are, who they are, where they're from, is absolutely being played into a government narrative. That they're only going to tell us what they want us to know. Does this confirm, if with the holding back of news and what we're seeing right now with the slowdown, that there is a narrative in play that we should be worried about? John, we'll start with you.
Well, the problem is that I think it does, and I think, to be fair, I think Lou's hinted at this for a while. I mean, if he's saying we're in first gear, we're in second gear, we're going into third gear, that means he has a cadence in mind. He has a plan, right? I mean, let's face it. A lot of people that come from Lou's background are mission-based people. They think in mission target terms, right? So to think that even if he wasn't coordinating with anyone else, to think that he doesn't have a plan would be silly, right? He's going to have some kind of a plan. It may be a very fluid plan, but he does. I think the real challenge, Dave, is that we have no way of knowing, and nor do we even have any way of verifying what is behind the narrative, right? Is it? I mean, like I've said to you before, like I've been in senior level positions in companies where I've had really good friends in other departments, and we've hung out together. And every once in a while, someone will go, "Hey, I'm trying to get this done. How do you think I should do it?" And we've all helped out, and then we've all gone back and done little things in our departments to help that guy out. And because we believed in what he was doing, we thought it was a good idea too. It wasn't sinister. It was just friends that had a common goal. Or it could be, that Lou's got a group of 4 or 5 people that make decisions, but there's someone above them that taps in and says, "Hey, can you guys take care of this now?" Because I totally agree with what was just said, that essentially you would want to have some sort of a cadence. If I was releasing it, I wouldn't want to dump it all at once. Especially, August is everyone goes on vacation, school's starting. There's they even postponed the announcement of our giant freaking space laser. That was all ready to be announced like 2 weeks ago, and they postponed that because of what happened in Afghanistan. So if they're postponing that, but the challenge is that we don't have any way of even guessing what the nature of the narrative is, and we don't have any way of validating it to find out. And so you're left based on trust. We just trust that it's a benign narrative. And
well, let me throw something else to back you up, John. Look what happened when the COVID panic first started. And yes, I said the C word, but people was buying everything out of all the stores. We was having political unrest everywhere. If we dropped, this is like the major, I hate to put it that way, but the Independence Day scenario. If they drop this thing, hook, line, and sinker all at once, everything that we know sociologically and in the world is going to fall out the window.
The what I would say to that too is, what kind of information are we looking at as well? Because it's, if we're talking about multiple species, which it appears to be, how do you announce that to the public? Like, hey, it's not just the grays, but there's also these other species that seem to be working together. When you had that Israeli general that came out, was it last year that started talking about this? Thank you. I'm horrible with names. That's the narrative. The narrative is that we are probably being visited, monitored by several entities. It's not or civilization. It's not just one overseeing this. It's got to be
who may not be friendly with each other.
Absolutely.
And we don't know where we stand in the middle of all this. Like, what are we an experiment? Are we just to be governed over? Are they just watching us? It's confusing, and that might be the reason to hold back is how do you tell the public that it's open skies as well? There's nothing we can do about it. If they come down, decide to pluck you out in the middle of the night, there's not a single thing we can do about it, and that's what they're worried about telling people is that this does happen, and we can't do anything about it.
And
yep. What's that?
And your opinion.
I don't know. I mean, like I said, I've had some experiences myself when it comes to witnessing UFOs and seeing whatever it was. And that was it was jarring for me. So if they come out and they're just like, hey, there's all these things, that aren't us and we don't have, I mean, it'd be too much.
And I think that's a good point, that it would be too much for a lot of the public that is out there. I don't deny that whatsoever in this entire argument. Maybe it's the old school journalist in me that I want the full story. I'm yearning for the full story. I don't want, half a loaf of bread. I want the full loaf of bread, because eventually I'm going to want more sandwiches. And I think when we're getting half a loaf of bread here, that, how the hell did I come up with bread as an example? But nonetheless, white bread, brown bread, doesn't matter, all right? Everything bagels. It doesn't matter. The point that I'm getting at is when you're only giving half the story, this is where danger occurs. You're holding it back from the public. And this is where we also see a major weakness in the way the mainstream media has been covering this topic right across the board, where they haven't asked the tough questions. They haven't gone back and said, why is the report only going to 2004? What is hiding behind that? What about Roswell? What about the 60,000 people in Phoenix? All right, there are a lot of pointed questions that need to be asked. And I'm not putting this on Lou Elizondo. Don't get me wrong. I am a fan of Lou Elizondo. I really am. I think his hands are so tied that we are lucky to get what we have out of him. And I'm willing to give him that break. Absolutely. But it doesn't mean that he can't answer any tough questions pertaining to why this subject is being controlled. Anybody?
Do you want me to say on that?
You go. Go. We got 45 seconds.
This is a military career man, a decorated military career man. There are things that goes through this guy's head and through this guy's heart. Believe me, I know.
Gary, and I'm going to cut you off right there because I'm going to say this. The minute he went public, he has a responsibility and a duty to the United States public and the world public about telling us what he knows. I'm not asking him to break his NDA or ruin his career, because we all know right now that he's still a government agent. We all know that. But at some point, he's got to stick up for the public, too, in this topic. And we need that news. We're going to get you to hold on right there, panel, because we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. The SOR Roundtable. Heated first half-hour discussion. We'll continue it when we get back, as John Hudson is just clenching his fist to respond to old Davy Boy here. Jason Guillerme is here from UAP Studies Podcast, and Selene from KPNL and from P3 Productions, and Spaced Out Radio, Gary Spikes Jr. That's a good first half hour, guys.
Yeah, during my talk, I accidentally, I didn't say hit my toe, but I started getting a foot cramp halfway through a talk. That was awkward.
I hate when that happens. I hate when that.
No, but you know what was really cool is I'm really glad we got the panel we have, because Dave and I are I mean, some of us are so into this. We're so buried in it that sometimes it's impossible to separate yourself from your point of view. And I like the fact that you guys are some of you are really taking this as, I think, maybe we should, which is just, hey, this makes sense, and hey, this isn't so weird, and it might not be, but it could be,
That's the thing. If they're going to hold back information, why? Because if we're dealing with one civilization, it's, hey, we're being visited by the same craft or the same people. But if it's much more complex, how do you tell a population? Like you guys mentioned that the toilet paper rush of 2020. I mean, that in Canada, that's all it was. It was toilet paper. We all freaked out. I think it was the same in the States. We're not a species that's designed to be taken by surprise like that, especially if you're saying
which is why the abduction topic will not be touched for a long time.
Absolutely. Hey,
yes.
John, your microphone seems to be sounding a little off tonight.
It's got some slow and static in it.
I wonder what there's not a whole lot to it.
Maybe back your gain down a little bit.
Wonder what kind of control I actually have. But, it's possible that I'm just too close to it, too.
All right. Chad Smith is here, everyone. The Chad Smith has arrived. There he is, everyone. There he is.
Is it a USB plug straight into your PC?
Into a Mac, yeah.
It does sound like it's overdriving a little bit.
Yeah.
I wonder...
Could go into your settings, your audio settings, and back the gain down a little bit. Of course, that is an Apple, so.
yeah. I mean, yeah. It's kind of like the whole government UFO phenomenon. They hide stuff from you and only give you what they think you can handle.
Very well put. My big deal on that whole thing is, I think there is a bigger picture here and a bigger, how would we say, controlling factor, but I don't want to be that guy that brings out the conspiracy theories. But there's way too much evidence from all aspects of the paranormal, not just UFOs, that we seem to be leading down to something that, like a great awakening or something like that. And it's weird. And it's like there's a certain faction of individuals or entities, however you want to put it, that don't want it to happen.
Yeah, it's either don't want it.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, John.
I was going to say, and the problem is that once again, motive matters, right? If it's a group that just is worried about the panic, then okay. If it's a group that's worried about their religion being disturbed, that's not okay, right? I mean, it all depends on what's motivating that action.
Absolutely.
And remember that incident when was it the Halley's Comet, a little religious group with the Nike shoes decided to drink the Kool-Aid. You're also dealing with that kind of problem. The fake messiahs that I know the answer, they speak through me, follow me, I'll show you the way. That is a huge problem. That's something else we have to watch out for.
For sure.
Oh, 100%. We got 1 minute here, guys. 1 minute.
Now, I did find an input volume that I was able to turn down. Did that make any difference?
No.
A little bit.
Well, I'll leave that to Gary. He's audio guy.
Well, can you still hear me if I have it like that?
Yeah. Come down just a little bit more.
Oh, that's as low as it goes.
It doesn't have that high end crack to it that it did.
All right, well, let's try this for a little while, and
Yeah,
you're not. Yeah. We'll go with it. I mean, it's not like we can't hear you. Your voice isn't as strong as it normally is, man. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, it's super curious because I don't mess with these settings, and I use the same setup every night, and so I always love it when you get different results out of a computer, and technically there was no input.
All right, guys, hold on one sec here because we're going to be going here. Big thank you to Jeremy, Walker Dale, Jazz, Sally, Adam, Linda, and Black Dragon for the amazing super chats. It's a great way to support this show. Thank you to all the veterans tuned in. Here we go. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with the SOR Roundtable. We do it near the end of each month, where we talk about the month that was and the weird and strange. Joining us tonight from UAP Studies Podcast, we have Jason Guillemette, John Hudson from the Unbiased UFO Report, owner of KPNL Digital Radio and Selene, and from P3 Productions, and our YouTube team on Spaced Out Radio, Gary Fu Manchu Jr. is here. We really appreciate all of you coming on. Now, John, I saw you right before the break shaking your fist at me about my opinion about the way this story has been handled and about the narrative. I want you to tell the public what you think.
So, anyone that has career military, right? They're I don't even know if allegiance is a strong enough word. Their internal belief of duty is to the Constitution.
Absolutely.
And it's to the United States of America. And I know this may sound odd, but that's different than the public's right for information. And because essentially the way, and I'll be honest, like I haven't even served. I've grown up around enough, and I've worked with enough people that I think I've picked it up over time. And that is that none of that freedom of speech matters if the first part isn't held true, right? So the focus is always on the stability and longevity of the government. And it's not even like the government as in like the way it's actively structured today. It's almost like the idea of the government, right? It's the concept of the United States of America. And so, while what you said, I think what you said would be true if we were talking about, like the executives at Apple, right? At some point, they need to look at the greater good of the public over the good of Apple, right? That makes sense to me. And that's even hard for people, but that part that I get. But when you're talking about someone who's criminal, especially someone like Lou,
yes,
people need to remember what we learned recently about the roles Lou had. I mean, this is someone who was most likely in a supervisory role for multiple SAPs,
mm-hmm.
for possibly all of them, right? This guy had a higher rank than Christopher Mellon. I mean, this Lou was he was a serious dude.
Yes.
All right, Gary, let's get your opinion.
I'm on the back with what John said. I'm just going to change his terminology a little bit. The way that we
Please.
are is not the government. but it's the ideology behind the United States of America. We make a decision and make a commitment to defend this ideology against all enemies, foreign and domestic, whether it be ourselves. I guarantee you, when Lou goes to bed at night, there are things in that man's head that he wants to forget, but he can't. There are things in that man's heart that he wants to say, but he can't. Because I wasn't near at the level that he is. But the same is happening to me. It is an internal conflict, and that's the reason Dave, you know I love you like a brother, and I'll stand behind you 100%. But I have to stand behind my brother in arms, and I have to stand by his ideology of that, because there's no telling what this guy knows. And I'm sure he wants to say it, but what is going to happen in his mind and in this country and in this world if he releases all of this?
No, and I understand. And like I said, I'm not saying that he needs to break his NDAs. Yeah. I'm not saying that whatsoever. I think he's been incredibly brave with the information that he gets. But the other point that John made earlier, and I'm going to kind of switch it off here, and Jason, I'm going to go throw to you here in a second. But John also said that they had to watch where they were putting out the information, because the one thing that Lou Elizondo and Sean Cahill sometimes did, and Lou more than Sean, was that they would put out information on smaller shows with very limited listenership. Now, that's great for that show because it's going to bring a lot of listeners who are following every move that Elizondo and Cahill do. However, when you go and drop information, you want to make sure that there is a massive audience whom you can share that with right off the bat. I'll give you an example of that. Okay, I gave Jeremy Corbell a couple of years ago a little bit of crap, and I hit him up on the air for it, not out of jealousy, but because out of reality of why he chose to put Bob Lazar and give Bob Lazar an interview with a channel like Secure Team 10, and the fact that channel at that time, before the channel's owner got into some legal issues, okay, but he had been known as a UFO hoaxer, putting up a bunch of CGI videos of UFOs. And it was very unpopular to those in the UFO community. And Jeremy flat out said on this show, and I agree with him on that, 2.1 million subscribers. 2.1 million subscribers. And I agreed with him. As much as I was grinding my teeth that I wanted Lazar, I wanted a shot at him because I had some very poignant questions that I would like to ask, but that 2.1 million I didn't have. And I think that's one of the things that going forward in the messaging that they may now be getting, that, look, Lou, you may like to give everybody some tidbits every now and again, but if you got a show with 50 listeners and you got a show coming up with 15,000 listeners, you got to save that detail for those 15,000. Yeah, and that makes sense because they're trying to get a bigger bang for your buck. They're not really making any money off of this, but you go where the crowd is. But it's nice if they give a bone to, the smaller podcasts as well, sort of, help build the community, especially the UFO community. I mean, it's so welcoming, and I've been blown away by everybody's generosity actually in this field. So I think Lou's the same. Lou did, a couple of interviews with people just starting off in podcasting. So I think he's been very generous with his time that way. And even we're talking about him taking a break. If you're about to release a bunch of new stuff or maybe go at it again, you would need a break in between. Right. It's just like a fighter. If you're going to go in, for another punch or something, you want to take a step back, take a breather, and then go back in. And I think that might be what Lou is up to. I'd like to give him the benefit of the doubt on that one. I'll agree with you on that. Yeah.
Well, and the one thing I would add as well is that, part of this whole missile defense thing that was supposed to be announced, 2 weeks ago that's been postponed. Mm-hmm. One of the things we learned a little about is what is involved in getting something that's attached to an SAP program made public. who in the chain has to be involved and who has to approve it. And this is something that has to, anything involving any kind of SAP work, you're talking about the DNI and the president. And that tough stuff takes time to queue, right? You got to get on people's schedules. You have to fit in other people's, paradigms and so forth, right? And so there could be some, natural reason for it. Lou did bring up the fact that 60 Minutes is going to rerun their special this Sunday. And so so he kind of hinted at the fact that this is kind of a rehash period for people to kind of read up and catch up and so forth. But yeah, I mean, I think the problem is I think you can explain this in a very benign way. I think you can describe this in a medium way, and I think you can describe this in a very nefarious way. And it all depends on people's intentions and what was the motivation and the catalyst for behavior. And those are things that are very hard for us to ever discover.
John, you brought up a good point that I was actually wanting to ask a question about. We hear a lot of this in all of the smaller podcasts and all of the, the fringe UFO stuff. Why are we not hearing more of this on the mainstream media? I mean, if this is that big of a deal, I know he did the 60-minute special, but that you don't hear a lot more of that. They seem to be wanting to, and I'm not turning this political, I'm asking it as a serious question, but they seem to be wanting to stream more of political unrest and stuff. Is that part of that bait and switch, or is it just they're not?
I could be wrong, but I think that part is very practical, because what you'll see that, it's really interesting, the cadence that comes out, because basically, what gets talked about on mainstream shows in UFO, right, are things that are not new to any of us that do research, right? There's stuff we all know, right? Then you look at what's been done in the major, right, 60 Minutes, right? And that stuff, that's old. Right? I mean, they cover stuff that we were talking about like 2 years ago.
John, I'm going to step in here because we recently had Space.com give us the exact same article as 3 years ago, a week ago, just a few days ago. Okay?
Bingo.
And as Jeremy in the chat room states, we're done with rehashing. We're done with those 3 videos. Okay? If anybody wants to talk about those 3 videos, because we now know how they came out, but nobody has ever asked point blank why the TTSA was never sued by the United States Navy for putting their logo on a for-profit company on United States Navy product. Nobody. I mean, that's the question that needs to be asked. Okay, there's all these pointed questions that we're rehashing over and over and over again, and that's the struggle that we're having. When Space.com comes out or 60 Minutes comes out and rehashes everything that we know the last 3 years that we have heard every day, and not just us because we're in the UFO field, but the mainstream public as well, that's where the danger is. I mean, we have all pinned our hopes on the bow-tied Tucker Carlson, who is still asking the same questions he did 3 years ago. Like, Tucker, you're an alleged journalist. Even though you're not a journalist, you're more of a commentator, okay? But you definitely know that report goes back to 2004.
Yeah.
Not 1947. Okay? Or the Foo Fighters of World War II, 1939 to 1945.
Yep, but I think this answers Gary's question, and that is that we're guinea pigs. Basically, they test messages on smaller crowds. They see what kind of effect they get. Then they try it in a larger crowd. They see what kind of effect they get. If nothing's blown up, then it shifts out to 60 Minutes. And that takes time. And so you have this cadence of material that's being, guinea pigged on smaller groups, and it slowly rolls out. And it sounds like there's about a 3 year click to it, right? And so, for people that are watching all of it, It looks ridiculous.
John,
It's frustrating.
I love you, but I'm going to disagree with you here. And the reason why is a media outlet with trusted journalists like 60 Minutes doesn't wait for the AOK. They know they dropped the ball. And they dropped the ball on their story, okay, and they were playing catch up with that report. All right? I don't buy for a second, and I'm probably in the minority here as someone who has actually worked in mainstream media, and it's one of the things that I actually do know about in my life, and I tell you, I could break down a hockey game like nothing thanks to working in media. But nonetheless, the one thing I do know is an outlet like 60 Minutes should have reported on that 3 years previous. Okay?
Yes.
One of their editors or editor team decided not to run that story because they were foolish. And once they realized that there was something there, okay, that's when they got on their high horse and butchered the story that they could have told. So I don't believe that for a second.
Which they think they did a great job of and are rerunning on Sunday.
Well, of course, because of the ratings. They may think it was a terrible job, which it was, okay, but the ratings impacted a replay. That's what it is. It's money.
See, I would say that Canadian media is even far worse
for
anything. They waited how long until they started covering it on CTV or Global News? They're always behind. They'll wait till the waters have been tested before they'll even cover the subject. And I'm quite disappointed in Canada for that. They should be on the ball.
Absolutely. Jason, I'm going to ask you a question here for our Canadian listeners and Canadian Dave here. Okay. I believe you have done some interviews across Canada about this topic.
Did a few? Yeah.
Okay. Me too. Have you ever been asked by a Canadian media outlet? I'm not talking a podcast outlet. I'm saying mainstream media outlet. Have you ever been asked in any of the questions that you have taken regarding Canada's role in ufology, and is it happening here?
I haven't been asked by any major program. I think in November I'm doing or helping the CBC Radio 1 do some special on UAPs across Canada. But yeah, I haven't had anybody really ask me what Canada's role in all of this has been. And of course, Canada is as much involved in this as the United States has been.
Absolutely.
Since the get-go. And, we're not that innocent country that doesn't know anything.
Exactly.
We do.
The reason why I ask you that, and I apologize for cutting you off, okay, the reason why I ask you that is because I've probably done 20 interviews on this subject across Canada. And not a single mainstream radio station, except one, which is a station that we broadcast on Saga 960 in Mississauga, Ontario, has asked me if Canada is involved. I've baited them into the question. And they never took the bait on whether or not Canada. They're only interested in what's happening in the United States. Like, this problem is below the 49th parallel. That's where all the woo is.
Yeah.
And we don't
it only happens in the States, right?
Exactly. Yeah. That's the point I'm getting at. We're going to move on here, gentlemen and lady, because we haven't heard from you. Yeah.
Can I bring up one quick point? Because
sure.
I meant to mention this earlier. When Elizondo was talking about the 90-day report that has to be filed, and you and I talked before about the fact that the requirements specifically said that anything you report that you should have reported before, but you haven't, must be reported in the current meeting. What he said is that requirement goes back to the 40s. He specifically said that requirement goes back to the 40s. So he is expecting information going that far back to slowly come out in each 90-day report as it becomes available. And that's the first time I've heard him ever talk about data coming out prior to 2004. And so I just thought you'd appreciate hearing that, because I know, you don't have talked about the frustration of data, older than, a teenager.
No, absolutely. We're going to turn the tides here. So we got about 5 minutes to go before we need to go to break at the top of the hour. Our guest tonight on the round table, we have Stetson John Hudson from the Unbiased UFO Report, and Selene from KPNL Digital Radio, Gary Spikes Jr. from P3 Productions, and our Spaced Out Radio YouTube guru. He's the guy who buys all of our followers. And, of course, Jason Guillemette from UAP Studies Podcast. And we're going to go to experiencers here, because the one thing that I have noticed over the last year, but mainly in the last, let's say 2 months, experiencers are getting ripped all over the place. Like, their opinion is like a fly on your food, where you are shooing them away because they have no business being here. And I'm seeing a lot of this. I'm seeing a lot of podcast hosts go after experiencers. I'm seeing a lot of chat rooms go after experiencers. And Gary, I want to start you off with this one, because I know we're going to end up carrying this over the break.
Now, are you talking in the UFO community?
It doesn't matter. It does not matter the community.
It seems like there's an argumentative, how would we say, attitude about it. But yeah, I would say that it's like people, they're stuck in their opinion and don't want to listen to anybody else's, and it's not right.
Okay.
I would say it's okay to question people. Like, if they're going to be on your podcast, question, but within certain limits. You don't want to invite somebody over your podcast and completely tear them down or try to find holes in their story. I mean, that's not the place to do that. And some of these people rather go on podcasts and seek maybe help that they should be getting. Hypnotherapy is not always the answer to any event that takes place, especially within ufology. But, if it's okay to say some people with mental illness do end up seeing things as well. Just because you're bipolar doesn't mean you're not going to see a UFO. I mean, that still exists. Unfortunately, everybody gets painted with quite a broad brush when it comes down to being an experiencer or trying to talk about something that they've experienced. Everybody sort of gets painted with that, well, it's put you in a cuckoo category, as opposed to listening to what the person has got to say.
Now, let me play devil's advocate for a second, right? Because let me say, first off, I agree with you, Dave, and I think it's really kind of crazy the way this is all being handled. And I think I'm not sure there's any place to be specifically trying to trip people up and tear them down, right? I mean, that's just not, good behavior. But look at it from this point of view. If I'm trying to decide whether aliens actually exist, if I'm trying to decide whether UFOs actually come here, if I'm that far back in the decision tree, right, I don't necessarily want to hear from someone who already believes. They're tainted. And now, it's not tainted in a bad way, but they're tainted. They're already deep, deep, deep on that side of the tree, right? So if I'm way up on the branch system, I don't want to hear from those people yet. Now, if I end up down that path, yeah, I do. But right now, I don't, because they're believers. I want to talk to people that are a similar level that I am. And so there could be a little bit of that going on. But I think, unfortunately, I think part of what's happened is, I think that because of the way information used to come out, because of the amount of hoaxing that used to come out, that there's a certain percentage of the UFO community that is just here for the fun of debugging stuff. They're just here for the fun of technically dissecting things and trying to figure out what's wrong. And they enjoy figuring out that it was a fraud. And that's it. Like, I don't know if you've noticed, but no one talks about the stuff that no one's debunked. Like, no one gets out and says, this one's real. That's not what happens. The stuff that's kind of real ends up fading off into the distance and no one talks about it. Everyone wants to talk about the broken stuff. So part of it, too, is that we have a culture of people that want to tear it apart.
Well, let me back you up just for a second. In the paranormal community,
20 seconds.
Up until a little while ago, and we'll roll right in, it used to be common question, do you have a history of drug abuse or mental illness? Anymore, that's taboo. Oh, my God, how dare you ask me that? Well, that's just a question. That was a common factor in the paranormal community. You try to cross over into Bigfoot and cryptid community, and they want to slit your throat.
All right, I'm going to get you guys to hold on right there. We're going to continue this talk because I feel the gloves are starting to loosen up on the wrists, and I feel they may fall to the ice. because we're going to talk experiencers. Because I'll throw the shot out right over the bow of some of these guests here that are with us tonight. If you've never seen aliens, you never know what it's like to have an experience.
Absolutely.
All right?
How could you?
Well, we'll debate it when we come back. John. Oh, I'm going to have some fun here. John Hudson. We got Jason Guillemette and Selene, Gary Spikes Jr. The SOR Roundtable continues right after this. All right. Time out.
Yeah.
I don't want any talk during the break about this subject because I want to save it for the radio side.
Okay. All right. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Oh man, I had something to say.
Well, you can finally speak when we get on the air. How about that?
All right.
And is due. Yeah, she's due.
If you want to talk, just show your fangs. We'll all back off.
Come on, let's see the fangs. Come on.
There you go.
Oh, nice.
Uh-huh.
Look at those. Wow.
Beauty, eh? Very beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Very
Oh,
beautiful.
it breaks any habit you might have of chewing your lip, huh?
Uh-huh.
The what?
Break any habit you might have of chewing your bottom lip.
Yeah.
All right.
What's the best food to eat?
I bet you she could chomp an apple like anything right now, though.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, they're actually really sharp.
Oh, yeah, nice.
Hey, Dave?
Yeah.
Someone in the chat suggested that I log out and log back into the stream. That might have some.
Yeah, we could try.
effect.
We could try that. Let's do it right now because we're on
Okay.
a longer break here.
Yep. I'll just leave and come right back.
Okay. Hi there, D Swagger. How are you? Nice to see you back. And who else is here? M. Coons. What's happening, M. Coons? Who else is here? Let's see here. Oh, I have been battling indigestion all day. I had some overly spicy butter chicken for lunch.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and Dave loves it, but Dave's stomach apparently doesn't like it anymore.
Oh goodness.
Getting older sucks.
It does.
Yeah.
That's true.
Hi, John.
Hello? Got any better?
Welcome back. Wow.
Way better.
I think so.
All right. Well, whoever recommended that in the chat,
Nice.
thank you.
Yes, we better plug that thing in. My goodness. Oh. All right, you guys chat with the YouTube crowd. I'll be right back, guys. I gotta go.
Now we can talk about it. Yeah.
Now's our chance.
Right?
Jason, how long have you been like, really into this field?
Do you know what? I think probably about a year and a half, I would say, is when I really got into it. I mean, I read
How
all
are you
the books.
feeling?
It's crazy. It's just crazy. And talking to all these, big time ufologists and getting to learn from them, this is just a whirlwind. It's crazy, but I'm enjoying it. Like, the people I get to talk to, the things I get to learn or hear about, like, I'm a sucker for the stories as well. Right. So
one thing I'll be curious about is I'd love to talk to you again in a little while, because I have this hypothesis that there's a normal story arc that we all go through. Because I got into this about 6 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, and I'd always been into this, but I had ignored it for most of my life, and I just happened to start getting back into it in 2015, right before 2017 happened. So flawless timing. And I have this hypothesis: there's a story arc where we all start out on propulsion, right? We really focus on the physics and how do you form the warp bubble and all this stuff, right? And that's what I did. My personal love is physics. That's what I'm focused on. And so and then you get to this point where you just can't go any further, and you have no choice but to start. I'm just going to study consciousness. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to focus on consciousness. And then you find the rabbit hole, right? And consciousness leads you to NDE stuff. And then you're like, wait. No. I'm not doing religious research. This is physics. Like, what happened to me, right? And then you find yourself, talking about mediums and past life regression and all this wacky stuff. And the next thing you know, you're talking to people who talk about ghosts, and you're like, okay, maybe, and you're like, what happened? Like, how did I get here, right? It's a crazy adventure, man.
It's like looking ahead and saying, I'm never going to become that guy. And then a few years later, you're like, I'm that guy.
Exactly.
But wait, let me explain to you why.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so funny. It's just like, it's trippy. I'll be really, because the one thing that I have found, which I like, is that I found that if you look at a lot of the people that have been researching this for a while, depending on where they are on their adventure, the one thing that a lot of us seem to get out of it, in all different ways,
high 509
is we lose our fear of death.
Not me, man. Not me.
No, except for Dave. Dave's the one exception.
Max Ritchie.
And it's a weird thing. I don't get it. I don't really understand why that's such a big deal, but it's a very common outcome.
Gonna get you guys to hold on. Hello, Terrence. How are you, Terrence? What is happening? That's my buddy Terry in Toronto. He sitting on Yonge Street waiting for the Maple Leafs Stanley Cup parade. And
low blow.
Max Ritchie, how are you? No, well deserved. Chris Moe in Austria, how are you? Good to have you here. All right. I want to say a big thank you to Black Dragon, Linda, Adam, Sally, Jazz, Walker, and Jeremy for the amazing super chats. It's a great way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. Hello, Red. How are you? Nice to have you here. And we're going to get going here in 5 seconds. Get your horns up, people. Bumblefoot is coming.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Icarescent. Icarescent is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with the SOR Roundtable. We do it near the end of each month, where we talk about the month that was in the weird of strange and weird and, of course, UFOs. Joining us tonight from UAP Studies Podcast, we have Jason Guillemette. We have John Hudson from the Unbiased UFO Report, and Selene, owner of KPNL Digital Radio, and, of course, Gary Spikes Jr., Bigfoot researcher, Fu Manchu extraordinaire, and we continue on tonight. And I want to get your opinion on the fact that experiencers lately, doesn't matter whether it's paranormal, supernatural, cryptid, or UFOs, aliens, we always seem to be shoving the experiencer to the side of late. We don't want their information. It's all about science. It's all about facts and proof. And the anecdotal evidence now means nothing.
Right. Well, I want to build off what was said before the break. I think that we experiencers are challenging people's comfort. I know for me, I didn't really look into Sasquatch. I didn't really want to hear people's stories. I wasn't ready for that. And then you throw me into my own experience, and now it's changed. And now I'm more willing to do the research, and I'm willing to look at the stories. But before, I have to be honest, there's a bit of fear, and I wasn't ready to go down that road. So I think that a lot of people will cast experiencers aside due to fear.
And ridicule. Because there is a large part of ridicule that is going along with that. And look, the scientific studies, Jason, I don't think are wrong. Don't get me wrong. We need that. We need to figure out what these craft are. We need to figure out where they're coming from. But I can tell you this. From an experiencer's point of view, I think, especially when it comes to UFOs and extraterrestrial contact, I really believe that the UFO public who has had experiences are closer to the answers than somebody like Avi Loeb, who wants to start a study trying to figure out where these people or where these craft are coming from and if they're out there.
Yeah, and there's probably good chances that some people on this planet are already aware of where they're coming from and, you know, what is out there. It's, you know, I think we keep pondering that question, where are they from? It's like, and it angers me that I know there's people that know this, that, you know, is it, you know, Zeta Reticuli, you know, A and B? We don't, you know, I'm pretty sure at this point it's probably safe to say that, you know, it keeps popping up in conversations and you know, different people that I interview. So probably say that might be a star system that does harbor life, that they're able to come here. As experiencers, that's the part where my heart is at. I you know, somebody who says they've been abducted, I want to hear their case. You know, like hear them out first, because I think if you want to know why they're here, look at the abductees. What is it about the abductees that they're so fascinated about? What is it about their DNA or the physicality of this person that makes them come out? I mean, that's a big think about the operation here. They have to come in the middle of the night, which, you know, it kind of sounds like a fairy tale, but, you know, they usually come at night to take somebody into a ship that is designed to have medical procedures done into it. There's a table in it. There's, you know, actual chairs in case you have multitude of people in there. They could sit on the side, which has been reported many times. This is a big endeavor.
Waiting room.
Exactly. It's a huge endeavor. This would cost hundreds of trillions of dollars to do on a global scale. So yes, I want to hear the experiencers, because a lot of them have similarities to their story, or maybe something about them that's specific. And I'm always curious about what diseases do they have. Like, I'm type 1 diabetic. Do they take diabetics? Is it that they, you know, they skip all the diabetics altogether? Like, what diseases do people have? Exactly. What is it about them that makes them so special?
Well, and the thing is that, but you know what you do, and I'll just make a side note. All that high tech to do that, and they still put people's clothes on backwards when they're done.
Yeah,
right? I mean,
yeah.
like what that shows that happens when you have hired help. But the thing is that the way you phrased it, the way you talked about it, it's clear in your language that you personally, to some level, have accepted the idea that UFOs are real, and that the aliens are at some level visiting or have visited Earth. Once you've made that conclusion, now the experiencers are almost the only people you want to talk to, because they've actually talked to the bloody aliens, right? So it's like, if you want to go talk to the horse's mouth, right, that's who you talk to.
Yeah.
But until you've made that decision, because the thing is, what if you decide that they're not real? Now all those people are crazy, right? If you decide they are real, then all those people are the most valuable resources in the world. So until you've made that choice, until you've decided what you believe, it's triage.
You know what? I'm going to tell you something. I've never mentioned this on the show before. I was talking to a very high insider in this subject. I'm going to leave this person's name out. And I had mentioned to him about my good friend and good friend of this show, Samantha Mowat. And Jason, you need to get Samantha on the air for your show. Okay, Samantha will blow your mind with her.
You got to hook me up.
I could totally do that. Okay, and I will tell you this, because they were asking if there was anybody that I knew who could help transition eventually into the alien talk, and I brought forward Samantha. I always do, because she is, in my opinion, the best kept secret in ufology, even though more people are starting to hear of her of late and starting to pay attention to her. But that being said, all right, I can tell you this. I was told by this insider, who is very well versed in this story, that they had no intention of working or bringing Samantha Mowat in at this time because she was so far ahead of the game that it would absolutely freak people out if it got onto television or it got into the mainstream media. Okay, that the world was not ready for people like Samantha, and this person did not deny what he had learned about Samantha at all. He's like, she is the real deal, and I said, I told you so. I told you so.
And Dave, I'll be honest with you. I'm still not totally comfortable hearing you say that. There's a part of me that wants her to be wrong, that wants her to be crazy, because what she talks about, it's not easy to swallow. It really isn't. It's very uncomfortable, and it's some of it. She handles it like a champ. Like, she's just like, oh, well, it's just like this and like this and like this. And she's adapted extremely well. I mean, she presents it very, very well. But when you start internalizing it and thinking, what would it be like if you were experiencing what she experienced?
Dude, I have. That's the thing.
Or my daughter. I mean, my God. I mean, like, yeah. It's like, that's so. I agree with this guy you talked about, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I would keep Samantha in a very, very nice, housing development, feed her well, and just, keep her there for a couple of years until everyone's ready.
And by the way, in a couple of weeks, Samantha will be on doing monthly visits on Spaced Out Radio with Lynn Wallington, our weekend host.
Oh,
and
cool.
I believe the first one where Samantha will be on will be, let me check here, it will be on September 12th. And that'll be on our YouTube channel. So, I mean, it's absolutely phenomenal. But I mean, we get to the point of the experiencers. Gary, recently we had you back on as a guest to talk about your Sasquatch story. And where you were literally 2 feet away from a Sasquatch staring at you while you were sleeping in your vehicle. And that's an anecdotal story, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. It is. We choose whether or not to believe you. We believe you because you can hear it in your voice, your emotions, and everything that goes through. This is what concerns me about the argument that we are having these days regarding the experiencer. All right, because there's no photograph. Sure, there's no evidence. There's no Sasquatch poop on the bottom of your shoe or anything along those lines. Okay, but here's what we do know. All right, we do know you had an experience that was very real to you, and we can choose whether or not we want to believe you. The problem that we're having out there that I see is that we have too many people immediately, without knowing you, attacking you because they don't believe you. It's not just like, I don't believe this guy. It is, this guy's a nut bar. This guy is obviously crazy. He doesn't believe, he's probably having nightmares from his military service, and it's transitioned to this. Sasquatch doesn't exist. Who's this guy trying to fool? Now, I'll give you an example here before I go. Speaking of Samantha, I did a podcast recently where I was asked about my experience with Samantha in the forest, where we were 200 feet away from an extraterrestrial. All right? The criticism I took in that chat room for that story, which doesn't bother me, but I'm just giving you as an example here, is incredible. From this,
I got to go back and look.
From this guy being a nut bar to I don't believe this guy, and here's the thing that and I realize people are done with stories. I get that, but you know what? You weren't there. You weren't there to see my emotions of where I was frozen stiff. Okay, because when I was in that forest, hanging out with Samantha, looking at this alien 200 feet in front of us in the middle of the day, I didn't see Jason Guillemette there. I didn't see John Hudson there, or Anne Selene there, or Gary Spikes Jr., or any of our audience there. So don't sit there and try and tell me what I saw compared to what I didn't see. And I agree with the point, guys, and Jason, we'll get to you after this. I agree with the point that for a lot of people out there, they're only going by what they're hearing, and they're going to make up their mind on that. But there's difference between not believing and being so harshly critical that you're going to try and shoot that person down and kill their reputation.
Well, let me say one little phrase.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the experiencers and experiences, the scientist would have nothing to study.
Yeah, good point. Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good point. Yeah, no, the experiencers is...
Which is one of the reasons why they've stayed away.
Okay, let's get to Jason.
Now, let's say the experiencers is where it's at. Now, obviously, it's, for me, devil's in the details. I've said that several times. When you hear about Betty Hill, when she's talking about how one entity came in from another room that Barney was in and got all excited, and she wondered why. And then he put his hands inside her mouth and he starts prying on her teeth. And then he asked her, why isn't your teeth being removed from your mouth like your husband's? And she had to explain to them what dentures were. Now, if you're telling a phony baloney story, why would you throw in that level of detail? Right? So for them, they got all excited. Oh, my God, these things, teeth removed from their mouth. Like he thought he would show the other crew on the other side the same thing. So that level of detail is like, wow. If there's no validity there, that is a great storyteller.
It's
right?
those little things.
It's the little things. And I always wonder about like smells. Tell me about the smells. Like you had a Sasquatch sighting. What was the smell? The same thing on the ship. Like if I was, aboard a craft and I thought, oh my God, I'm going to forget this. I'd smell everything, like smell every, table, everything I could to try to get some sort of memory back at some point when I get a whiff of something that reminds me of it. So the experiencers, it is where it's at because without them, we don't know what these.
Absolutely.
And I'm talking UFOs here, but I mean it's the same thing with Sasquatch or anything else. It's what details are they giving you and how credible do you find their story, right?
Absolutely. I want to get to a point here because Chris in our chat room brings up a very good point. He goes, Spaced Out Radio is the only chat I go to now. So ugly in the other ones when experiencers are brought up. We're attacking these people for no reason. Mm-hmm. For no reason. I know there's a host out there who has literally ruined a number of people, and he's a Canadian host. And we literally are trying to book this guy for this show, and he now has such a taste after going on another Canadian show's host, or another Canadian host show, that this guy absolutely trampled him and his research without even talking to him about it. Totally set him up. So I had to guarantee a list of things that we would not do in order to get this guy on. And they were all simple things like, let me finish a sentence. Right? Yeah. I mean, this is the crap that we are dealing with on a basis. And then you get a lot of show hosts out there where I know there are listeners in our chat room right now who have been attacked because they have experiences and they brought them on other podcasts, and those podcast hosts have absolutely rip them apart in front of their audience, and their audience literally chase them off. Why do that? If you don't agree with something, it's okay to say, you know what, I'm just not buying your story. I'm sorry. It's okay to be polite, rather than absolutely carve them a new one and make them feel so horrible about what they are experiencing because you're not standing in their shoes. And I know you're looking like you want to say something.
No, I mean, I agree. It's one of those things where it's very difficult. It's something new to me being in that realm of things, and I've definitely been attacked when it comes to my own stories, and I have definitely been around some other people that have cut me down immediately when I've went to tell my story. And it's almost like they try to pick it apart to find... They so badly want to make what you're saying just nothing, that it's not true. And they will go to any length to do it. And I feel like it's out of fear. I feel like it's out of, they don't want their perfect little world, their comfort, to be destroyed. But what you really have to ask, what are they going through internally? Because they've got something so ugly inside of them that they're now projecting it out on you. You know?
Yep. And some of it is it's very normal. It's like there are so many people in this field that started with Bob Lazar. Like that's what got them interested. And they really believed Bob Lazar. I was one of them. And then I don't even remember what did it, but there was something that happened at some point where basically like a lot of us completely gave up on Bob Lazar. And it was hard. I mean, I was depressed because he was the only real evidence I had, at least that I felt, that UFOs were real. So if he wasn't legit, then UFO, like I was young, right? It's like I was sad. I was like depressed. And so I think a lot of people went through that experience. And so now they're out there going, well, you know, I'm not gonna believe in you again and get my hopes up and get all excited and then have it all fall apart again. Yeah. So I'm gonna debunk you now to save myself the pain and suffering of falling for your, you know, stuff and then learning later that you're full of it. So it's very defensive. It's very based on fear. You're totally right.
Yeah, I agree with that. Perfectly said.
And even with Bob, I mean, when you listen to his story, you can say, okay, well, you could dismiss the whole thing. But what you can't dismiss is the fact that he would drive 2 hours and 40 minutes with a whole group of people to bring him out in the middle of a desert, middle of nowhere, to see a UFO fly, and they all witnessed it.
I've gone back and forth 5 times with Bob.
Yeah, it's like if he was lying, those people wouldn't come forth and say, yeah, you know, he did bring us up. We did see something. You know, when you look at those, just that alone, like how would he know that 2 hours and 40 minutes away from Las Vegas, they were flying this craft every Wednesday at 7:00? Like, how would he know that?
Yep. But the thing is and someone else said it earlier about the fact that the part of the challenge is that this field is still wrapped in belief systems. Mm-hmm. It's not science. It's not data yet, right?
Yeah.
And whenever you have belief systems, that people tie them to their egos, and they defend their belief system the same way they would defend their own reputation, their own honor. That's the whole reason why products try to turn their brand into a belief system. Like that's the whole reason why the Republican Party and the Democrat Party in the U.S. have tried to turn their stuff into a belief system, because they know it causes people to act very emotionally and become very defensive of the idea, as if they're defending their own child, right?
Right.
And right now, a lot of the UFO world is in that state, and it makes all of this so much harder and so much more volatile.
Very true. Very true. As we got about just under 2 minutes left, Gary, you know, as a Bigfoot experiencer that you are, I mean, you see it in that community too. We focus on UFOs, but you're seeing it in that community quite as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm seeing it in every community, even the paranormal. Somebody commented, maybe it's society with all the everybody being on lockdown, they're getting more nasty. I don't think it is. But the biggest thing that I could say is, folks, be careful who you're ripping apart, because this is a traumatic experience for most people, and you are affecting them for the rest of their life. How you present this, be respectful about it. Quit being a prick, for the lack of better terms.
Yep.
You're damaging people that's already damaged goods. Help heal.
Pouring salt on the wound.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, I don't want to say it's like the Me Too movement, but if you have had an assault on your person, a violation of some sort, which a lot of these people do have, depending on the experience, and then they're trying to talk about it, and then you shut them down, that's basically tell them, don't talk to me about it, right? I don't want to hear about it because it's uncomfortable. You know, anything that makes us uncomfortable as a society, we don't want to. It doesn't exist. Think about the 1950s. Like, you know, next door neighbor was beating his wife. Nobody batted an eye at him. You know, said good morning to him every morning and just went about your business. Shut your mouth. You didn't see anything. That mentality is still kind of lingering in our societies. But
no, you're very true. Crew, I'm going to get you to all hold on here because we are going to go to break. at the bottom of the hour here on Spaced Out Radio. And what I want to come up with next is fakers. People who fake evidence, fake who they are in order to get more camera time, more video time, more documentary time. Let's get into it. We may not bring up names, but we'll bring up experiences. And Selene, Gary Spikes Jr., John Hudson, and Jason Guillemette join us next here on Spaced Out Radio as the Roundtable continues to end out the month. All right, we're clear.
And Jason, let me just add that Samantha is a beautiful person. I mean, a really beautiful person, right? But just keep in mind, if you were in the kiddie pool and then you went into like the shallow end and maybe you're in the deep end, she's like the Marianas Trench. I mean, she's like she's down there, right? And
those are the people that I'm looking for.
Well, then she's perfect for you.
Yeah,
she's perfect for you.
My spiritual guru Pascal is in the chat room tonight, and Pascal can tell you point blank that everything that I've gone through is 100% true. I mean, you want to see some serious woo, Jason? I should get you to meet with Pascal.
Nice.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Pascal and I did this experiment before the aliens came. We did this experiment, and I ask, anybody can do this. Put yourself in a completely black room. Okay, not just a room where you turn the lights out. Okay, we're talking taping up the doorways, taping up the windows with black garbage bags over black garbage bag over black garbage bag to get as pure darkness as possible. And I could tell you this, man. I could tell you this. That the shit you will see when you are completely in the dark is unbelievable. The first time Pascal and I did that, we actually, we're sitting 3 feet away from each other and cannot see each other. That's how black this room is. And we literally watched a solar system start spinning between us up at the ceiling of the room. And you would see little shoot-offs of these little orbs. Like the solar system was maybe only this big. Okay, this is the stuff we're talking about. And at one point, I was literally going like this with my hand, and I could see my hand glowing. Okay, Pascal could not see my hand glowing. But
Dave, do you know if it makes a difference if you just cover the eyes versus blocking out the room?
No, you want complete black, like a complete black room. It is insanely awesome. It's freaky because you can't see your hand right here. You can't. And I would love anybody to try this out. It's phenomenal. And
yeah, I got it because the thing is, if you cover your eyes, if you block out all the eyes after, it sometimes happens in 10 minutes, but it will definitely happen in 20 minutes. You will start to see all sorts of crazy stuff as well. Like you will see colors, you will see all sorts of all your mind. Your mind will eventually. Your mind gets bored enough; it starts manufacturing its own entertainment.
This is.
So I was kind of curious how this contrasts to that.
Oh, dude, this is totally different. I know exactly what you're talking about. Totally different. So with Samantha, all right, Jason, I knew her for 25 minutes when she walked me into that forest because she knew there were aliens in there. She knew, and. When the 4 dogs that were with us disappeared, that's when shit got real. So when you interview her, ask her about that and ask her about the dogs. Chefist, how are you? Thank you for joining us.
I'd love to interview the dogs.
Oh well, Doug.
I'd like to know why the dogs left.
Believe it or not, Doug, who is right in front of me, he was there. I would love to know what is in his brain about that. All right.
Got to talk to Doug.
Give me 1 second here, guys. Thank you to Nicola, to Tim, to Jeremy, to Walker, Jazz, Sally, Adam, Linda, and Black Dragon for the amazing super chats tonight. It's a wonderful way to support this show and what we do on a nightly basis. Thank you so much for the love. Really appreciate that. We got about 1 minute to go here, guys. Chef, it's all in your mustache, man. It's all in your mustache. Just let that juice drip. It's all you need. Chef has one of them big Lanny McDonald mustaches.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
You need a good partition, like a good lip, from your nose down to your lip to be able to grow one of those.
I don't
have that either.
I can't grow a good mustache.
Yeah.
Not like Gary Spikes there.
Yeah, I can't grow a good one either.
Very well put.
Yeah. I mean, I'll hook you up with Samantha. We're going to get going here in about 10 seconds, everyone. Thank you to all the veterans listening to this show. We absolutely love you. You always have a safe home here, as well as to all our regulars in the chat room tonight. Thank you. Here we go with the second half. We pass the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for tuning us in. Really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with the SOR Roundtable. We are joined by UAP Studies podcast host Jason Guillemette. We have Gary Spikes Jr. from P3 Productions and SOR on the YouTube side, and Selene. She is the queen of KPNL Digital Radio. And from the Unbiased UFO Report, Stetson, John Hudson is with us. And we're going to continue on talking here about fakers and hoaxers who are out there getting a lot of press. Now, earlier on, we were talking about the experiencers out there, but there are a lot of people out there who are trying to pull the wool over people's eyes in order to try and gain more television time, more conferences, more book deals, more podcasts, whatever it may be, in order to try and get their name out there. This has always been a problem in this field because people, when you have no education, no foundation, no nothing, this is always something that we can look at as a problem that is going to stay here for a long, long time in this field. Now, there are some great people in this field. Let us not pass judgment that it is a small percentage of those. But Gary, I want to start with you on this one, because coming from the Bigfoot world, there's always the people out there, who are convinced this is a monkey. They're convinced this is a great ape. They're not willing to hear the full subject matter in regards to the subject. And to me, that type of stuff is what really hurts the research moving forward. What's your thoughts?
You have to listen to both sides of the story. And I mean, you opening this up with hoaxers. The Bigfoot community, encrypted community, is chock full of hoaxers. Of course, you had to ask me, the guy that's paying people, buying the subs for your channel,
True,
that's
yeah.
We're called Poor Boys Paranormal because I'm spending all my money over here. But it is the community itself and the subject matter itself exudes that kind of behavior. But of every 5 that might be a hoax, you're going to have 1 or 2 that's the real deal. And that's the information that we've got to be able to glean out there. I don't think that in my life, I don't have any time for the hoaxers. If I find out somebody's a hoaxer, I politely, keyword, I politely disagree and back away. I don't.
Before you go any further, we should actually say that we are making fun of the fact of you buying subscribers for our channel, because lately we have been absolutely trolled because of the great job Gary has done in rebuilding our YouTube channel. Our subscribers the last couple of months have really taken off, and that has led some people on the internet to believe that we are buying subscribers rather than using the good old-fashioned hard work in order to, pick it up. So we like to make fun of that here, that, all of the people in our chat room are bought and paid for bots, and, that we're buying everything now. Even though we risk losing our monetization from YouTube over that. So Please note the sarcasm.
I'm sorry, I have to bring it up because once again,
there's a lot of Chad Smiths.
It does look kind of suspicious.
I'm just saying.
Yes, you never go wrong with Chad Smith.
But seriously, on a serious note, hoaxing is not good for the community. It's not good for the science. It's not good for in the cryptid community, I call it the target species. But it's not good for the subject matter. It's not good for the whole function, straight across the board for everything. And one bad hoaxer, for the lack of better terms, down here in the South, will say one bad apple will ruin the whole batch, and it will. And that might be where we're getting some of these folks that are ripping experiencers apart, is because of these hoaxers, because
they're afraid of the damage they're going to do. But the challenge is that you said that you like to. I mean, any of us in any field we're in, you like to fast fail the things that are obviously not quality, right? They're not what you need. But the challenge is that no one has any definitive set of guidelines for passing and failing anybody. So what that means is that any one of us could be failing someone that we shouldn't, right? Believing someone is false when they're not, and we could be believing people that are actually false. We all have different ways of measuring it. Most of us can't even quantify what we do to measure it. A lot of people just go on their gut, right? And everyone's got different instincts, and this is ugly, right? I mean, if you don't know what's going on, like this is a nasty pool to jump into, because you don't want to be if you have no way of doing it, if you have no way of deciding who's false and who's true, then you could end up wasting a bunch of time learning from people that are making it up, which happens
all the time.
But some people go out of their way. You can tell, like even Stan Romanek, if we can talk about that gentleman.
Absolutely,
at
that's
first,
a good example.
A lot of people thought at first this guy's the real deal. I mean, he had video footage of weird stuff flying above his house. And I believed him at first too.
Have you seen the footage? It's crazy. Well, it's some crazy footage.
He's got some good stuff.
It's real, yeah.
Minus, though, the papier-mâché heads that are poking through the windows or over the railing of, like, if you're an interstellar traveling species, why are you playing peekaboo with the guy in his windows? Like, that part, and that's where he started losing me.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That
up to that point.
That is the story I believe, because I've had that happen. That's how we gained our mascot that we named Carl, is because on April 20th, 2015, I actually had that exact same scenario happen in my studio window, where I had a gray standing on the other side staring at me.
Playing peekaboo.
Yeah. Scared the daylights out of me. I've never.
What did you do?
Well, I did what any man would do. I did what any man would do. I screamed like a banshee and nearly fell back in my chair. And then I jumped up. And looked out the window because it was gone. And I literally stood there looking. And if it was a human, I would, because of the view that I had, I would have seen a human running away. And nothing was there. And he was clear as day, the big gray head with the I got a picture of him here. Not him specifically. Let me find it here.
His name was Chad Smith.
But we changed it to Carl. But very bony structure, small mouth, small nose, giant almond eyes. Like the head was massive. I mean, it was like almost the size of our listener Faps, right?
It's funny that we're afraid of them because, I mean, they're the size of a 9-year-old. We could totally take them. You know what I mean? Like, if it came out,
They're spindly little things. Yeah,
you could totally take them, but we're totally freaked out by the fact that they look so different and so weird. Probably the same thing with Sasquatch. We can't take him on, but
well, they did show up with ships with medical exam rooms. I mean, come on. I mean, it's like that's a weird thing, you know?
Well, that's the part that freaks us out, right? Yeah,
absolutely, and it should.
Right. Well, how intelligent are they? You know, they may be small, but you know what's in their mind. What can they do?
And you
can't put clothes back on. Tell you that much.
You can't put clothes back on, but they just everybody that everybody. I'm saying that there's a good majority of people saying that they have a sense that these beings have a superiority, that they have authority. Remember one gentleman saying that he thought they had more authority than his parents when he was little. Like they would take him, and he thought they have more authority than my parents, and if they want to take my parents, they're just going to go ahead and do that. So the minute that you become, I would say the person becomes attuned to that, saying, they're going to do what they're going to do. There's nothing they can do about it. And that's an experience for life. Like you think about how many women have a lot of women, it's always the sexual reproductive procedures that are done to them, hybrids and stuff like that. Whereas gentlemen's, well, it's not always the case. So if it's a man, it's not always a sperm collection or sample taking or anything like that. It's usually an implant or something to do with their nose. So I thought it's not everybody. It's not every male that gets chosen to partake in this hybrid case.
So we're either walking sensors or we're walking breeding tools. Yeah,
but getting back to what you were saying about Stan Romanek, there is a classic example. Never mind what's happened since, but there was a classic example of a guy who was the talk of the town of the UFO experiencer field, and then when his experiences stopped, he was caught faking things. Yeah. Like if you saw the Skype video of him throwing up a pen and then the pen allegedly falling from the ceiling. And did you see that? Did you see that?
Sad.
Where did that come from? And I know people who know Stan personally, and they were very hurt to see that he started doing it. But it was going to his head. Like when he would show up at conferences and everybody would be there in the meet and greet with maybe a T-shirt and blue jeans and maybe a jacket blazer on, he was showing up in a 3-piece tuxedo. Like with a bow tie and the cummerbund and everything. Like he made himself out to be the victor, the hero. Everybody's playing minor league baseball and he's on the New York Yankees kind of thing.
Well, and Dave, think about how you feel, right? You've talked about it recently, right? For a long time, you were not only having a lot of experiences, but you were able to tell them when you were going to have them. You could actually call it out, right? Like Babe Ruth, there, I'm hitting it there, right? And then it stopped.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
It's hard. I can't imagine how hard it must be. That must be really, really hard.
It really, you know what, John? It really sucks because you want to be able to have the experience. You want to be able to have them continue, right? Like, for instance, if I were to see that UFO on the ground again that kicked things off for me, this time I would walk over to it. If I were to see that alien in the forest with Samantha Mowat again, I would walk with her because she wanted to go over there and see them. And she was on her way and I begged her not to go. Right? But I would change that in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat now. And that's the issue. And you recently had some incredible experiences on a recent trip. I don't know if you want to talk about those or not, but I mean, this is exactly what we're talking about. Anne is somebody who, as we're talking about hoaxers and everything, I'm not saying that she's hoaxing or anything, but this is someone who didn't want to get out of her realm. She was very comfortable in the paranormal, and all of a sudden, crap hits the fan in the cryptid world for her. Why don't you explain? Why don't you explain what happened?
Yeah. I really love to do the paranormal investigations. You've got your EMF readers, you've got the Estes method, you're, getting responses, and it's amazing. Well, I had went on a trip to Ohio recently. This was a couple weeks ago. And it took me a couple days to be able to talk about it. So we had been doing some ghost investigations at this one location, and there seemed to be stuff coming through that seemed like it was attached to the land. So on the last day, I was like, well, let's go do a ghost investigation outside in the woods. Just thinking only, being, the blindfold on paranormal only, right?
That'll teach
So we
you.
go. Yeah, it did. It was so, there was one thing that I didn't pay attention to. Here in Oregon, when you go outside, you might hear crickets and some frogs and stuff like that. But man, out in Ohio, it's like a symphony. It's so loud. And I didn't register that when we had walked into the forest, it was silent. But the people I was with, they're like, well, how are you feeling? Well, I'm sensitive, and at the time, I was feeling fine, but things felt so dead, quiet. And so we put out the blankets,
No,
and we put out,
Did it feel bad?
Yeah.
Like a bad or just quiet, like weird? Like,
No,
did you
just
feel like
silent.
nervous or scared or
Absolutely.
vulnerable?
At that point, no. It was just absolutely silent. And which was, I noted that was a little weird, but then I didn't really think anything of it. So we put everything down. We have this motion activated teddy bear. We have an EMF radar. We've got this musical ghost box thing, and we put it all down. The people that I'm with sit down in blankets, and I'm sitting with them. But I hear something off to the side of me, and it sounded like walking. And it didn't sound like a deer or a bird or a bunny or anything like that. It sounded like a person. And that kind of, it just kind of threw me for a little bit of a loop, so I stood up. And I turned around, so now I'm facing the other way. And I grab a flashlight. So we had drove in on this little off-road vehicle, and we had parked it at the mouth of the woods where we had come in. So now I'm facing this way. That was behind me, so now I'm facing that way. I have the flashlight, and I'm pointing it.
It's okay.
It looked like you've got some, like, here there's a tree, and you've got your head and your shoulder, and you've got the arm around the tree. But there was no, and it was just barely out of the flashlight light. And I thought, sure, I need my glasses. I have an overactive imagination. I'm being weird. I'm being a wiener. This is what it is, So then I shine the light other places, and then I put it down, and they're asking me, "Are you okay?" And I'm just like, "Yeah, I'm fine."
Like, you don't look okay.
Yeah, no, I didn't. Oh my gosh. Well, then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it's silent, right? And just smack. Like an open-handed smack on the side of the gator that we had, come in on. And at that moment, I was just done. And I'm just standing there. And they're like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, No, I'm not. We gotta go. I just want to go out to the field. Just take me to the field, and it'll be fine. So we walk out. We get in the gator. We go out to the field. We're sitting there, and I'm like, okay, I'm good. I'm fine. This is good. All right. So we put everything down, and the person that I'm with decides to play the Ohio Howl. That it's like a 1994 recording.
Wait. Isn't that meant to attract them?
I don't know. No clue. I don't know Bigfoot. I don't know.
This doesn't seem a very friendly thing to do with the state you were in, you know?
Well, let's let her finish, because this is a hard story for her.
And so she plays this. And it legitimately, the same tone, the same cadence, just comes out of the woods. And I'm standing there like, this isn't happening. This is seriously not happening. I'm not hearing this right now. So we load back up, we get in the gator, and we stay there for a couple more seconds. And the largest sound, I mean, it was like it had to have taken a tree out of the ground and just smacked it against another tree. And I'm just like, go, I'm done. And, you know, so they got it started, and we drove back down. And that, I mean, that's only of the story, but it threw me for such a loop. I called Dave, and I was just, I mean, almost in tears on the first, I think it was the second day I'd gotten back. And I'm still like, part of me is like, I was there was 2 other people with me. But a lot of me is just like, no, no way. Like, seriously?
You start.
No.
Gary, I want you to chime in on this, because as a Sasquatch researcher, I could see you beaming in hearing this encounter. Your mute's on, Gary.
Muted.
I try to keep it quiet for y'all. The area that she's in and everything she's leading right into this has got all the little subtle innuendos of my own personal experiences of reports that we've taken over the years. Definitely, I wouldn't have blasted the Ohio howls in that area at that time. I mean, just hearing it alone when you're out there and you experience it, that's eerie enough. But then to get the answer back, yeah, I'd be, even as much as I've done this, I would be exit stage left even. But now the slap on the side of see, that's another thing too, is it's almost like we have paranormal and Sasquatch, or the paranormal Sasquatch. Which one is it? But the slap on the side of the side by side without being able to see nothing, cloaking Sasquatch, maybe, we don't know.
I have never heard the Ohio howls ever.
Do you want to?
Well, we're going to right now, because
okay. I was going to say I got them.
I'm going to share it right now, and we got to hear this. So hopefully you guys will be able to hear it when we put it on. I don't know if this is going to work or not, so hopefully it does. I'm going to unmute. I much prefer the Sierra sounds. I much prefer the Sierra sounds. The Sierra sounds are way, way stronger for me.
Yeah, but 2 total different situations, 2 total different geographical areas, could be even different, subspecies. We don't know, but they're both pretty prolific. I mean, all the sounds are.
Yeah, that's
I never thought I'd hear anything like that ever. I really didn't.
Jason, Jason, you got to get into the mountains of Chilliwack.
Some of your fear, right? Or not fear, but some of your whatever it was causing you to want to leave. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you dissect it at all to determine whether, like, how much of it was the drastic, uncomfortable nature of the juxtaposition between what you thought was real and what you were seeing, right? So just that break in reality that you were now having to somehow remesh, and that was just horribly an uncomfortable thing. And how much of it was you actually being fearful that your body might get harmed?
Gosh, I mean, when I was standing there and when I was looking at whatever this could have been, if there was something really there, it was that break in my reality, and what I felt was real, and that was very. At that point. At that point,
hold that thought. Hold that thought. We're going to go to break at the top of the hour. We got 1 hour left with the SOR Roundtable. We're going to continue with Bigfoot next. All right, we're clear.
How long ago did this happen?
2 weeks.
Oh, so, man, you're fresh. That's crazy.
Well, see, the big thing too is like you're okay when you think that it's your mind playing tricks on you. Yeah, you're afraid, but at that point, I was like, this is in my head. So it was when we got out to the field and we actually heard that back, and we had just been in there, and we physically, all of us heard it, especially the large tree ripping, cracking, smashing, whatever. Now you've got other people that are experiencing this too, and you cannot explain this away. You cannot say that it's you. And at that point, I didn't want to die. Right.
Well,
I was scared.
This is kind of what Merle and I heard in the forest in 2018 up here. So that little bit of talking there, if you listen to the talking. That's what we heard. I'll tell you.
No.
I did. I want every time we talk Sasquatch at night, there's nothing more that I want to do after the show than to go into the forest.
Seriously?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Dave's crazy like that.
Yeah, let's go. Let's
He
rock.
needs to come down here in Oklahoma and get him some of this Oklahoma waspy Bigfoot activity that we have down here, and he'll change his mind. I was going to say the other word, but Dave doesn't like me using that word. So.
Yes, actually. Oh, yes. Yeah, we're getting into that. I got to bring that up. Thank you for reminding me. I almost forgot about this.
Wouldn't it be great with all like these forest fires if you just saw like video footage of it, just a Bigfoot running, for his life, or just something with all of this. If they're hiding in the woods, you think at some point we would get a body, or something.
The thing about it is we've got good photographical and good video evidence and good audio evidence, but people, just like we was talking about earlier, people just rip it apart.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, Jason.
No benefit to talking.
Oh, yeah.
Jason, I may need you.
Okay.
To make a trip up to Lytton with us. I got tipped off to something big time there.
Nice.
And it is completely 100% First Nations. It involves portals, UFOs, ghosts, and Bigfoot.
Let's do it.
Yeah, dude. It's a phone call. But first, the lady I talked to the other day said that she wants us to meet her father, who is one of the elders, so that way we can go on a spiritual quest in a sweat lodge first.
Oh boy, I've always wanted to do that.
Yeah, me too, man. I'm my jaw was dropping. I'm like, really? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, I'm in. I am so in. So I'm actually going to be calling her this week to see when I can line that up for a weekend. And, hey, so Preston.
Just to let me get this straight, we're going for a weekend. We're going to end up hot and sweaty and chasing Bigfoot.
No, this is more about the portal where the orbs come out of.
Oh, bring me there. Yeah, I definitely would go there for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
Yeah, I will definitely be recording that. Yeah, I will let you know ASAP. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
Yeah. Hey, Bill F. and Murray, how you doing, buddy? I know your real identity, but I don't care. You're Bill F. and Murray to me. G. West, how you doing? But, yeah. And they got everything there. Everything. And now that the rattlesnakes are starting to go away, and Nikki, all you got to do is put in on YouTube Ohio Howl. That's all you got to do. Ohio Howl. Oh, hey, Clam. Yeah, it's going to be good, dude. It's going to be real good. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, the rattlesnakes, not so much, but the other stuff sounds really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll definitely get you in on that. I got a funny one to start off here, guys. Oh, yep, I don't normally do this, but I'm doing it this time. No, we're not going to record the ceremony. The sweat, you can't bring cameras in.
Nope.
Nothing. We're not doing that. But
cameras working there.
But the actual investigation out, which would probably be a different weekend, would be what we will bring the cameras out for. And we may get permission to go on First Nations land to do that.
That would be cool.
Yeah, dude. Very cool. Here we go, everyone. Let's do this thing.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Kicking off the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Icoruscent. Icoruscent is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night, right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on with the roundtable tonight. Jason Guillemette from the UAP Studies Podcast. Lady Ann Selene, owner of KPNL Digital Radio, where we broadcast. From the Unbiased UFO Report, John Hudson. And from P3 Productions, Bigfoot researcher Gary Spikes Jr., who also handles our YouTube channel. Everyone, thank you so much for coming back. I got to say this. Now, normally I'm pretty snarky on our YouTube channel in the comments. So if somebody snarks me, usually I will snark back. But this comment made me laugh a little bit, because if anybody knows me and has listened to this show for a long time, you'll know I'm not a very cocky person. I'm not a very arrogant person. Okay? But apparently this listener thinks I am. going to leave his name out of it. We'll just call him, what can we call him here?
Chad Smith.
Let's just call him Chad Smith, even though he's not Chad Smith. He's a bad Chad Smith, okay? A bad Chad Smith. So he types out, what really annoys me about Dave Scott is his opinion on people who call Sasquatch Squatch. And if they do, they are not real researchers. They are just a load of rubbish from an opinionated little man. Who is he to say that? It's amazing to me how an ego that big could fit into a body so small and all the advertising dollars. So I replied, Dave loves your comment, but hates the word Squatch. Okay, Gary, you used to be one of them Squatch people. We got that crap out of you.
We're working on it. I still slip every now and then.
Yeah, but you're getting better. You're getting better. You know, so I'm going to tell the story here again. All right? I'm going to tell the story again. The reason why the word Squatch is banned from this show. Because in 2015, I had the ultimate pleasure to meet legend Dr. John Bindernagel, who unfortunately is no longer with us. And I asked him point blank in our conversation, what do you think of the word Squatch? And I watched this 80-year-old man take a deep breath, let out a giant sigh, and said, 70 years of research killed by one word, or ruined by one word. And then he went on to say, I have been trying for decades to get the scientific community, and I'm paraphrasing here, okay, to take this subject seriously. And now that everybody on TV is Squatch this, Squatch that, making fun of it, he goes, it has killed any credibility that I have. And that hit me, that resonated with me, and since then, the word Squatch has always been banned from this show. All right? So it's not an arrogance thing, but it's also, in my opinion, a professional thing. Because the one thing these fields lack, with all the fake journalists, the fake scientists, the fake researchers, and everybody that's out there, all right, is it lacks credibility. And if you're going to, you know, use the word Squatch or other little stupid acronyms, how can we take or you're going to lie about your credentials, how can we take you seriously? How can we take your research seriously if all you're doing is playing a game? Gary, I'm going to let you have the first word on this one.
Ooh, you might not want to do that. You know, my defense to that was it's just a terminology. But after thinking about it, and out of my personal respect for the late, great John Bindernagel, as soon as you told me that, I was done. And it's a habit, because I've been saying, down here in the South, we use those terminologies all the time, like the Squatch word, boogers, and, you know, wood boogers, and all kinds of stuff. But it really does. It does take away from the credibility of the subject matter. And myself, after I had my face-to-face encounter, well, you know what? I got a little bit of respect behind me. I respect these things, and I respect people that go out and that are respectable, that go out and research. Then you have the hoaxers. So we could put the hoaxers and the word Squatch and all that other negative terminology together and throw it out the window as far as I care, because it is kind of derogatory if you think about it. If you're really trying to be creditable in this field, as creditable as anybody can be, I think there's a lot of good creditable people in this field. And I think that our terminology, if we get a standardized terminology and get a standardized form of reporting, in the UFO field, we have a fairly standardized way of reporting it. We need that in the cryptid world. That's the reason I'm working behind the scenes with somebody in the UFO field to maybe do that crossover. But yes, I don't like the word more.
So I just want to so it's okay to say Sasquatch. It's just the abbreviated Squatch that is the issue. Is that correct?
is a First Nations name for it. Okay, it's the same thing as Bigfoot. Bigfoot was brought out by Gary Cruz, that when they found the tracks in Northern California in the 50s or 60s. And that's where they got the term Bigfoot, because they seen it in the newspaper. I believe that we should use the First Nations terminologies, the Sasquatch, all the down here, they got a bunch of different terminology for it. To me, Sasquatch is the standardized terms for it. Bigfoot is just as bad as Squatch. It is, but it's the term that everybody recognizes.
I agree with that.
I don't know. I get it. I mean, I understand the respect part of it, and I understand why it exists. But I have to admit, like, personally, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure if I would personally. I don't know. It's hard. Words are words, but you when in Rome. Sorry, go ahead, Ann.
Well, an idea that I had, bear with me. If it would be similar to saying, well, instead of I'm going to go out and I'm going to hunt ghosts, or I'm going to see if ghosts exist, it would sound a lot less credible if you're like, yeah, I'm going to go out and hunt ghosties.
Well, I'm going ghosting.
You know what I mean? Right.
Maybe I'm messing everything up then, because I say I'm going ghosting.
Jason, what's your call?
What's my call?
I mean, you're a researcher. You want your research to be taken credible. Okay, you're somebody. I'm gonna give you an example on this. Okay, I'm a UFO guy. You're a UAP guy.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
But to me, yeah,
that's the difference between experiencer and researcher. Because I'm not a researcher. Okay, but for you, okay, in order to use the proper terminology to try and keep yourself credible within the field, you have standardized UAP.
Gone with the UAP, yeah.
Yeah.
But UAPs, again, the debate was really stupid because people are like, it's unidentified flying objects, but there's a lot more than objects. There's orbs, there's weird lights. So it's a phenomenon. So that's why unidentified aerial phenomenon was my go-to. But UFO, it's just as valid. Because if you say UFO, it encompasses a lot of things as well. Most people know, familiar with the Tic Tac now, but I mean, it's been around forever, cigar shapes and all that. It's been around since forever. But the terminology, I mean, I'm not good with the lexicon in the Sasquatch field, but I think it's, we call it Sasquatch here, right? Because we're close to Harrison. That's just in our region, that's what we call it. We don't call it Bigfoot, we call it Sasquatch. But yeah, I think it's sort of silly to just the word squash or squat. Is it squatch? Is that how you pronounce it? Sounds like, sounds like a fruit or vegetable that I hate. Yeah, exactly.
Or a swatch, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I could see that, but yeah, the credibility is that's really where it's at, and it's so easy to lose credibility so fast. You could be working at this, in this field for 20 years, and all of a sudden you get one bad case that leads you down road that maybe you put too much faith in, and you end up getting Stanley Romaneked. At some point, the terminology for Sasquatch, I'm not too familiar with, but I think squash, it's definitely doesn't sound right.
I got one for you guys.
To me, it cheapens. Before you go, Gary, to me, it cheapens the research. When you see guys on YouTube or on Facebook or even on television with some of the shows, ooh, we're gonna go squatching tonight. What the hell is squatching? Okay. Right. To me, it cheapens the research, and it makes the field look very amateur.
Mm-hmm.
Very amateur.
Yeah.
Look, like Gary has been face to face. Ann has just had an experience. I've had experiences, that I can't explain. And to me, if you're showing respect for the research and those who have laid the path for you, show some respect for what they've done in the path that they've led. Okay? That's the whole point of the argument. I don't care what you say. To me, it just, in my personal opinion, it sounds like a dumb term. All right? But if you look at the history of it, if you want people to take you seriously in any of these fields, whether it's the paranormal, whether it's cryptids, whether it's UFOs, okay, play the part. Be pro about it. Be pro about it.
He's passionate. I love it.
Well, think about it. We have guys in the UFO field that have doctorates. We have a few guys in, like great Dr. John Bindernagel, Dr. Jeffrey Meldrum, Dr. Melba Ketchum. For what these folks are, they have spent years and thousands of dollars to get to where they're at. Do you hear them saying, let's go squatching? Do you hear them saying, oh, there's a squatch in these woods? No. We need to up the credibility of the subject matter. That's the reason. And once again, I know me and Dave will go sideways on this one too. That's the reason the scientific community is not looking at the good evidence that we have. And Duke, this one's for you. I know you don't like the scientific community too, but I got all the respect for you. But that's the reason, is because there's too many people going, there's a squatch out here. It's not, for lack of better terms, it's not respectable.
No, and that's the entire point. But people get passionate about it. People get passionate, and they want to get angry, and they want to say their terms. And, no matter what, I know there's going to be people who are still pissed off at me for, shutting that term down on this show. I'll tell you, it was real fun getting Cliff Barrickman to stop saying Squatch on this show.
That was funny.
That was fun.
Yeah, Come on,
Duke
did bring up a good point. Dr. Igor Burtsev, I got to give him credit. He's been around a lot longer than a lot of folks.
Exactly. So, I mean, that goes with the criticism, the critique, and the fact that we have a lot of people in this field who will do anything, say anything to try and get their names out there. And, and you have come across a number of people in your paranormal jaunts who are, they're all about themselves. They're not about the research. They're about self-promotion. How do you think that hurts the field and what we're trying to bring to the public?
Gosh, well, it's really hard, because I know for me that there are certain people that I need to stay away from. If I want the Caravan or KPNL to be something that is healing, something that is bringing in research, something that is credible, I can bring somebody on that is a hoaxer, is a fake, and it can ruin me. It can ruin everything that I've worked for, just like what you guys were talking about. Mm-hmm. And it's sad, because one of the things that drew me into this community, it was back in about 2017, and I had went on a show and told my story. Everybody was so accepting. And there were people that came out of the woodwork saying, oh my gosh, I've had experiences like this too. And then I didn't feel alone. So what I think is happening is, again, it goes back to what is going on internally with these people. That they're seeking that attention. They want that community. They're wanting, these things, I think. I know not all of them are, but I think that is one of the driving factors behind people really trying to, oh, I had this experience, because then, people are going to gather around you and go, oh my gosh, really? And they're going to give you that support.
I can see that. Jay, you wanted to say something?
No, I was just listening in. Yeah, I totally agree with her. Your reputation could be shot so fast by just believing or having the wrong person on. I mean, this subject is, whether it's Sasquatch, UFOs, or ghosts, is already taboo with a lot of people, already sort of not taken seriously. That, yeah, it doesn't take much for credibility to get shot down, or even haters. I mean, my podcast hasn't been that long, but I already had, a couple of hate mails, and,
welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Congratulations.
Yeah, welcome. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm really enjoying it.
You're making it.
Yeah, I'm making it. Yeah, well, you got a couple of trolls. You're doing good. But yeah, it doesn't take much to use credibility, and some people just don't care about what it is that you have to say to begin with, so they're just waiting for anything to. I mean, Lou Elizondo, we are talking about him. How many people are talking about Lou? I mean, every podcast out there right now is talking about Lou. So, and if it happens that Lou was, a serial killer or something like that, all the credibility of everything that he put out there would just be gone overnight. And anybody who's had him on their podcast would be tainted. It doesn't take much, especially in this community, to lose credibility.
But I gotta say, that is one aspect of this entire community, like this entire world of paranormal research that really upsets me, because it is such a sign of an immature culture, because everyone screws up. Everyone makes mistakes. When you're right, you teach. When you're wrong, you learn. And if you don't have an environment where people feel safe to screw up once in a while, no one takes any risks, and no one takes any leaps, and no one feels safe to really do honest research. And it's a very poisonous thing to do to your community. And at some point, we gotta grow up from that, because it's really broken. Everyone is going to screw up. If someone has never screwed up, you should be very suspicious, right? Because it means they're faking something, right? They're playing it so close to the vest and so safe that they're never ever making any leaps, and you don't get anywhere that way. And it really frustrates me that the world that I live in, like, we learned a while ago that what you want to do is you want to fast fail. That's really what you want to do. What really hurts you is waiting too long to make decisions and to fail things out. You're better off making decisions early. You're better off making the wrong decision early and adapting to it later. You want to fast fail things, and you don't want to be afraid of failure. Being afraid of failure is a guarantee of bad data, and it's very frustrating.
But you know what, John? Just to kind of add to that, though, this is one of the only paradigms and fields that you can get into where you can create your own character. Okay? We already know there have been fake scientists, trouncing around and getting on television, getting slots at conferences, getting slots on book deals, and quoted for books and on radio shows and television shows. We know that anybody who writes a blog is out there, oh, look at me, I'm a journalist. All right? And they're not journalists. Okay, you got people out there who claim that, they know what they're looking for, the big monkey in the forest. They don't know what it is. What we've done is we've created a cast of real-life characters, almost like a Comic-Con, and put them into these fields of study that has ruined the credibility of those who are trying to get the true message out, whether they're experiencers, whether they're scientists like Dr. Bob McGuire or Dr. Jeffrey Meldrum or people like that, okay, whether they are anybody of any type of source or credibility. It's much like the ghost hunting shows on television where, they put up the music so loud and then you hear the people on TV, what was that? What was that? What was that? Well, we couldn't hear it because the TV show put the damn music on too loud. So what was that? That's one of the reasons why I stopped watching the shows. But this is a field, as we got about 90 seconds left, where you can create anything that you want and no one questions you. I had a gentleman steal one of my radio programs, okay, a snippet from one of my radio shows, and put it on his monetized channel. And when I gave him a YouTube strike for that, he tried to destroy me on social media and my reputation for him stealing my product, which says at the end of every show, we state the show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. If that person had come up to me and said, hey, Dave, can I use this clip? Sure, not a problem. But you're not making money off of my work to put on your channel where people are going to view that. And he had like 1,800 views on that video. Sure, it's worth about 23 cents, but that's 23 cents that he made off of me. And that's what I'm talking about here when it comes down to it, is in this field, you can be anything that you want because nobody holds you to accountability. Jason, you got the final word.
Oh, final word. I think it's true. There's no accountability because there's no really, there's no format. There's groups and all that. But any one of us taking, a shot at this, whether it's investing in Bigfoot or UFOs, it's a solo job, and there's no guidelines. But yes, there's a lot of frauds and a lot of people making money off of this as well, which is, you can make money if you wrote a book and it's selling well. I'm okay with that. But
Absolutely.
saying, hey, come to my house and
we'll
charge you
$6,000. I want you to hold on to that thought because we'll be back with the final half hour of the SOR Roundtable. Jason Guillemette, John Hudson, Gary Spikes Jr., and Anne Selene. Great panel tonight. Brilliant discussion. And the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio next. This is the one subject that just pisses me off the most. It really.
Well, the irony, Dave, is that if that person had a journalist background, they would have known better not to do that.
Absolutely.
That's the irony of it, right?
Absolutely.
Is that it was something that someone would do because they're ignorant of how things need to work, But one interesting side note, not really directly related, so I probably best to talk about it now anyway, is that there is a point in a field where you get to the point where everything is essentially just judged on results. And you take, for example, like in the Bay Area, like in Canada, you have these like engineer rings, right? Like engineers, like an official, like there's exams you got to take, right? Like,
yeah.
You become like an engineer and like you get like a secret passcode ring thing.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Bay Area, you're an engineer if you build things.
Mm-hmm.
And we typically don't require degrees. We don't require any certifications. We require you to go do something. And if you do it and it works, you're an engineer. And essentially, that's how it plays out. There are a lot of people that have degrees, don't get me wrong, right? And a lot of them do a lot of good with those degrees, right? A lot of them don't. But the thing is that, you do get to a point where you can just measure people based on the results. The challenge is that those results have to be very quantifiable.
Right.
And right now, everything that we're working with isn't, right? Like if what everyone was doing was producing reports that then could be peer reviewed, right? Then we could just look at someone's history. Oh, look, this person's put out 5 papers that have all been, very, well peer reviewed by several people. And therefore, obviously this person is doing good work because look at his results, right? Look at her results. And we're not there yet.
Well, this may be a little bit of a touchy subject here, but somebody that Jason and I both know and respect who has been in the UFO research field for a grand total of about 6-7 months, recently got a part on a UFO television show as a UFO expert. Now, I love the person. I think this person is brilliant, all right? But I can think of a lot of other people, no offense to this person, I can think of a lot of other people who are more deserving of an opportunity to land a television gig to get their research out there than someone who has been in for 6 months.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
Jay, you know who I'm talking about.
I'm not quite sure, and I don't want to name the wrong name.
Let's just say a young, brilliant lady out of Toronto.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
But The thing is that whatever it takes to bring the subject forward, I'm okay with, as long as the person does really good work.
I agree with you. But are
Yeah.
you okay with that person going on their Facebook page and calling themselves an expert?
I don't think anybody is really an expert, and especially not in ufology. So, but that's again.
Well, let him finish, John.
No, again, I was going to say it depends on you might be active just for 6 months, but you might have had years of collecting data or reading books and talking to experts and stuff like that. So I don't know. I'm not in a place to say.
You are way too Canadian right now.
I'm way too Canadian. That's
too
just the
Canadian
way
right now.
I can't say anything bad about anybody.
No, I understand, and I'm saying this with all due respect to the person, because I think that she is brilliant. Okay, and I think that she is smart and very good for the field. I have no issue with her whatsoever. I got an issue with a television company who is putting the word expert on somebody. To me, Grant Cameron, if we're talking Canadian researchers, Grant Cameron or Victor Vigiani or Chris Rutkowski would be the closest thing to experts that we have.
Yeah.
Not somebody like me or you or this person who has been in the field publicly for 6 months. And that's where, when we talk, in my opinion, when we talk about credibility, bringing credibility to this field, I mean, it's great to have new faces. Don't get me wrong. It is great to have new faces. But when we're talking credibility, this is one of the only fields I know where you don't need credibility in order to get ahead.
Yeah.
And that's what bugs me. That's what bugs me.
And I can even split the difference a little bit.
We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter @Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. For the final time tonight, we introduce our panel of great voices when it comes to the SOR Roundtable tonight. John Hudson from the Unbiased UFO Report. We got Jason Guillemette from UAP Studies Podcast. We have Selene from KPNL Digital Radio. And, of course, Gary Spikes Jr., Fu Manchu connoisseur, as well as Sasquatch investigator and the leader of our YouTube team here on Spaced Out Radio. So, credibility. Right before the break, we were talking about people making it, saying whatever they can in order to make themselves better in this field, because there are no rules in the anarchic realm of the paranormal umbrella. So where do we stand on credibility, Jason? I'm going to start with you on this one, because if you can make up your title, if you can make up your research, you can make up who you are. How are we supposed to grow the field if everything's made up?
Good point. We need something more concise, something more strict. I mean, there's a lot of different organizations out there that have their different formats, how to collect the information, how to proceed with the investigations, which is really good. We need that. But there's no, we were talking about ufology. Usually when something ends in ology, you went to school for it, right? You have some sort of degree to show for it. And, I could sit here all day long, call myself a ufologist, but that title means nothing. Because at the end of the day, it's like, well, what is it that you do? Well, a lot of my investigation is not field work. I sit at a computer, and I could, look at what the star system satellites were above your head. Was it an airplane that you saw? As far be it from me being out in the field all the time. Like if I get a MUFON report from Alberta, I'm not going to go to Alberta to investigate it, right? So there's a lot of images that we have in our heads of what makes up a ufologist. And again, ufologists, I use that term lightly because I don't count myself as a ufologist, as somebody interested in UAPs, right? But the reputation is like, I've seen some people that really started off with really great careers and somehow just burnt out, or they started drinking Kool-Aid that they really shouldn't have started drinking because, they fell down some rabbit holes that just, where did these people end up? I'm afraid of doing that myself, of just believing something, wholeheartedly and falling down the trap. Yeah, I would say credibility in this field is hard to maintain to begin with. It's hard to get to begin with, and it's hard to maintain once you have it.
And I understand that, and I think that's smart. John, you want to comment?
Well, no. I think I honestly, I think the whole topic's just it's really, really hard because what we're talking about is a bunch of issues that are actually human issues. They're not even related to the field. They're very, very human issues that we have that in every other field we've developed things to fix. Right. I mean, in every other field we have things. I mean, you take what I mentioned during the break. That in the Bay Area you don't have to have a degree to be an engineer, but you have to have produced something of quality, and you have to usually produce something of quality with some consistency, right? I mean, you're measured by your output, and you take this field, and there's certainly no standard output. There is even very little real output. I mean, most of the output in this field comes down to PowerPoint presentations and books. That's pretty much all that gets produced as a physical thing that you can put your hands on, right? And so you can't measure people that way. There's no associative authority. There's no standards organization. Like in computer science, we have many standards. I'm very involved in the IETF. We design all the protocols that define how the internet works, right? And you don't have to be of any credentials to participate in the IETF, but you got to do something. You gotta give. You gotta produce something. You gotta have results, right? And we're just not a field that has any results, and so we make it really hard to measure ourselves in any quantitative way, and a lot of that is due to the nature of the field, unfortunately. And so it's a lot of this is very challenge. There are very challenging problems to solve.
We're going to change subjects here a little bit because one of the big arguments this past month has been charging money. Okay? Money. It all comes down to money. And there was a UFO conference about a week and a half ago that was charging up to $250 per ticket for a virtual conference. And we had both Daniel Sheehan and Mark Sims on this show talking about the conference. And, I'm a firm believer because Spaced Out Radio is a business. It's not something that we do for fun here. It's a business. And I have no problem with people making money off of something they love. I have no problem with a baseball player making $25 million a year because they're the best left-handed pitcher in the league. I have no problem with LeBron James, who will probably end his career as a billionaire. I have no problem with hockey players making money, or people if they wanted to grow up to be a doctor and they're making a ton of money off of being a doctor. Nobody says, I don't understand where in this field, Anne, that people say that because this is the paranormal, we're not allowed to make money off of our podcasts or our books or off our showing up at conferences or anything like that. Like, where did this come from?
I don't know. That this part is definitely new for me. I mean, KPNL's been on air for about a year now, and I definitely have seen two camps where there's half of people they say they'll never charge, and then there's the other half that make it into a business, and it's respectable and it's growing wonderfully. I don't think that there's anything wrong with making this into your business, and being able to do your passion and make money off of it is a gift, in my opinion.
And it depends on.
Go ahead.
Oh,
please
sorry,
go ahead.
I was going to say it depends on what what the money's being spent on. Because if it's saying, hey, if you want information, you need to pay, right? That's different. Because then that's withholding information for momentary gains, which is not good. What I don't like is there are cases where people are being charged a ridiculous sum of money to be taken out at night and being told that they're seeing something. Some of them believe it. Some believe, most of them believe it. But it's like, it's just Stephen Greer. I love him. I think he did some good stuff in the past, but now he's charging people ridiculous sums of money to take them out to fields and take pictures of. Again, he's like, oh, look, it's an alien. To me, it just looks like a camera that took a picture of a light source. It doesn't look like anything. But yet, no, you will come and you will definitely see an alien. You were mentioning, Dave, your friend, and how she can produce, or not produce, but she knew that this entity was there. Did she charge you?
No.
Why would she charge you? Just like, no, because it's part of nature. It's like showing you a tree. So if anybody says, hey, follow me, I have the answer, but you need to pay me first. Oh, and sign a non-disclosure agreement, by the way. I would just be leery of that to begin with. And I don't think that amount of money should be made. I think that you can make money going to do a talk somewhere. That's fine. They're going to pay you a certain amount of money for your travels, for your time. But making a lot of money off of believers to make them believe that they're experiencing something that maybe they're not experiencing at all. And I mean, I haven't been there. I haven't done the tour myself. I would love to do it and see if there's any validity to it. But as far as I'm concerned, nobody's walked out going, hey, dude, we took pictures of 3 grays in the field and very clear. There's none of that. It's always a blurry image. And somehow somebody's in the know, but you need to pay me to get that information. So that's the part I don't agree with.
But you hit the nail on the head when you talked about information. And I think this goes back to what we were talking about a minute ago, and that is that there's no producibles here, right?
Yeah.
And so when there are no producibles, what people use as producibles is information. Information becomes the currency, right? And this is a problem, right? Because not only is it wrong to hoard information, but it's in our field, it's incredibly hypocritical. Because here we are banging against the government going, how could you withhold information from me? Oh, look what I got. Now you have to pay me $5 to see it, right? I mean, it's really problematic. At the same time, people do deserve to be able to make a living. Everyone's got to pay their electricity bill, right? And so the problem is that until we start producing something, like a thing that has value, right? I mean, you take, for example, the idea of charging for presentations, right? I've presented at a lot of conferences that were expensive, like, $3,000 for 5 days, right? Like, that's totally normal for my world, right? $3,000 for 5 days, completely normal, plus hotel and everything. It'll be a $5,000 trip when you're done, right? Now, I didn't make any of that money, right? But, the place that put it on did, right? But here's the thing. The deck that I created for that presentation, I gave out freely afterwards. I wouldn't give it beforehand, but I'll give it out freely afterwards. If I can, I'll film it and I'll put it up on YouTube afterwards. So what you're paying for is being there physically when I delivered it, right? That's what you're paying for. So what you're paying for is essentially my, in theory, a skill as an orator or whatever you want to call it, right? Or the ability to ask me questions or dialogue with me while I'm giving the presentation. I'm not charging you for the data. I'm not charging you for the information. And that's true in many fields. Anyone can download a patent, right? But if you want the product that the patent was built with, that costs money, right?
Right.
And so until we start making something, and there are some examples, but even people who write books, it really depends on the book, right? Because, if you just write a book of people's interviews, I don't know if that's a product, but I would argue that what Cheryl Costa did, that's a product. that's actually a real product because there's like research behind that. That's like those are hard numbers, right? But other than that, there's not many examples of actual, and there's no consistency. There's no market for products. So we trade in information, and that creates all sorts of problems.
Let's get Gary in here.
Do you really want to do that?
Well, you're kind of part of the show.
I'll say it in very few simple words. I don't need to speak a whole bunch of words to say all this. If you want to sell something, make sure you got something to sell that's legitimate. Just like with you, Dave, you need a service from me. I provide you a service. We make a trade. We do what we have to do. If you don't have something to sell, don't falsify it and make it, hype it up and make it something that it's not, because people are going to find you out. And that's where we get into the credibility issues is I'm in this about the target species. I'm in this and I'm in it for personal gain. I'll be blunt with you. The personal gain I get is I get to learn sitting here listening to you guys. I get to get my name face out there, and I get my information that I think is legitimate out there to the people that need it. Do I charge them? No, because I'm on that side of the fence. But if you have something to say, if you have something to say it. If you have something to sell, make sure that you have something legitimate to sell. Don't be 6 months in the game and say that you're the guru master hoo-hoo when you're not. Sell what you got. If you don't got it, don't sell it.
Okay, well, what about Richard Dolan about a month and a half ago took a lot of heat over charging, I believe it was $150 for a full-day conference with 5 speakers. And he had hundreds of people signing up for this. And yet the UFO community was pulling their hair out. How dare he charge $150? My thing is this. If people want to see private coverage and have a mini conference where he can make some money off of something that he loves, go for it. I'm very capitalist that way. I agree with what you're saying, Jason, in regards to, and Gary, that you have to have a product that the people want. Okay, blurry pictures aren't getting it done, or satellites up in the sky and claiming them as UFOs are not going to get them done. All right, so I agree with you guys on that. But at some point, we have to be able to capitalize off of what we are doing. And the money situation is ugly. Like the paranormal side of things, you are considered a bastard child in the paranormal field, and Ann can attest to this, if you charge to go into an investigation. All right? So if somebody calls you into their place of work because you have a bar that is spending, $5,000 a month on broken glasses, all right, to throw a ghost team $500 is probably nothing at this point to try and do it. But you are blasphemous if you charge money for a paranormal team, Ann.
Yeah. No, it's true. There's a lot of, even with, so there's some historical buildings, that they do ghost investigations there. And I understand that the money per time that you go in there is to help with the upkeep of the property, and that's how they make the money. And but it can be very expensive, and it seems a little much, and there again too, with coming in to, like, for me, when I would do my own investigations or I would help people with stuff in their house, I never charged. That's just not what I did. But if they were talking about it, they were very on edge when it came to, well, is this going to be a charge thing? And I was just like, no, I'll just come in.
And again, if you were to charge them for gas, let's say that they wanted to hire you and you charge them for gas, and maybe you got to stay somewhere or eat or something, that's fine too. Making money that way is fine. Like I said, I'm totally okay with that aspect. It's just that information for money aspect that I don't like. This sort of snake oil salesman that we have within ufology and anything cryptid or ghosts, anything like that. There's a lot of snake oil salesmen, and that's what we got to be careful with, especially our money. It's like, somebody starts charging $3,000 or $600 above for, what it is they're selling. Well, what am I getting for my money here, right? And nobody has the answer to anything. So spending that much money, you're not going to walk away with any more answers than you did when you came in. Probably just delusions. That's it.
Well, let me throw something at you. I got contacted literally last week, from a individual out of Virginia that wanted to fly to Oklahoma and go out in the woods with me and me to show them Bigfoot.
Right.
How can I, and he wanted to pay me, how can I, as a independent researcher, and I say researcher or enthusiast, experiencer, however you want to do it. Now, if you want me to go out and show you how to track, I can do that because I can produce that. I can teach you this. I teach that. I teach survival. I teach all kinds of stuff. But I cannot guarantee you that I'm going to take you out in the woods and show you a Bigfoot. I have no control over that.
No, true.
Same way with UFO. So I'm not going to charge you to do that.
No, and that's very true, because when I ran the ghost tour at the local museum here before COVID, all right, one of the first things we would do is we'd bring everybody in, all the people who were there for the tour that night, we'd bring them into a circle. And the one thing that we would say is, look, this is a $20 donation. We charge $20 a head. This is a $20 donation that goes to the museum to help with the upkeep. We don't have anybody in any buildings that are going to jump out from behind corners and go boo. This is real hauntings. We may not hear a thing. The ghosts may not show up tonight. Okay? But if they are, we'll be able to interact with them. It's up to them. And that's the way we would do it. But we would tell everybody
it as such.
Absolutely. Like you can't take someone in the field and guarantee them a Sasquatch. You can't.
But it's the same thing with whale watching. Right, we do whale watching right off the coast where I live, and they can't guarantee that you'll see a whale. You have a really good shot of seeing one, but they charge it's not cheap to go whale watching, right? Yeah. But it is a product. There's a boat ride. There's goods and services being traded to make that happen. And so I think it's really unfortunate that investigations have fallen into this. And I think part of it is due to the fact that when things are trying to get off the ground, you typically have to give them away for free to because people don't trust what you're doing. But to me, investigations are a perfect example where you're not charging for information. In that case, you're charging for the use of information, right? Someone's paying you're paying someone because they've absorbed all that information and they're using that information to provide you a service. The problem is an exterminator can show you there's no more termites. A ghost investigator can't prove to you there's no more ghosts.
Right. On that note, I'm going to have the final word here, and I'll say this: conferences do cost money, and none of us are turning down a flight, a hotel. That money has to come from somewhere. That comes from the paid people who show up. The virtual conferences, total money grab. Total money grab. Jason Guillemette from the UAP Studies podcast, and Selene from KPNL Digital Radio, John Hudson from the Unbiased UFO Report, and Gary Spikes Jr. from P3 Productions, Bigfoot investigator, researcher, experiencer, and from our YouTube channel. I want to say thank you guys for a wonderful and successful SOR Roundtable. It has been a lot of fun having these great and differing opinions. That's why we do it. It was great debate, great conversation, and very knowledgeable. We may not have solved the world's problems, but at least we got the topics out there, and we say thank you very much to all of our listeners for tuning on in to the Roundtable as well. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight on YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Spreaker, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio.
I know you're out there somewhere.
Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, if they're named Chad Smith, we'll take them too. Good night.